Welcome, everybody, to a very special Growing with Fishes podcast. We have an amazing guest today, and we're super excited to have Jeff Lowenfels, from the author of Teaming with Microbes, Teaming with Nutrients, and Teaming with Fungi, is with us today. We couldn't not be happier to have him. We do this show every single week in order to promote aquaponic and cannabis production, as well as other permaculture and sustainable production methods. We also have today with us, actually we'll go down the line. You want to go first, Roger?
Hi, I'm Roger, and I'm the administrator at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. I also own my own aquaponics commercial farm, USD certified in South Carolina, named Bono Pepper Farm.
My name is Ken Armstrong. I'm the owner of Ouroboros Farms in Half Moon Bay, California, an aquaponics farm, and also part of Purity Medicinals. Super happy to be here with everybody, and excited to be a guest and be a part of this experience.
Nice library.
I'm a hog master. I'm from ilovegrowingmarijuana.com as well. I'm a moderator on there, and it's awesome to be on here with everybody.
Go ahead, Marty.
Marty, I have a YouTube channel, AP Meds, and co-moderate the Aquaponic Cannabis Growers Facebook group with Steve. And yeah, so check out the YouTube channel, and thanks.
BrayneGro.
I'm BrayneGro. I make aquaponic cannabis content on YouTube. I haven't made anything in a couple of months, but I'm hoping to get right back on it. I also have my content on Instagram, and I am as well on ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. Thank you.
Glad to have you back, brother.
Yeah, man.
Today, this week, quick mention, we will have another aquaponic cannabis class over at Ouroboros Farms on October 21st and 22nd, if anyone's interested. We have a lot of cool guests coming to that class, so if anyone's interested, definitely come check that out at ouroborosfarms.com. So this week we have Jeff Lowenfels. He was kind enough to join us. He was actually recommended. We had Tom Alexander on a couple of weeks ago, and he recommended reaching out to you and gave me your contact info, and was kind enough to do that. And he was a great guest, and we're super excited to have you on. And so Jeff Lowenfels, a little quick background story, is the author of Teaming with Microbes, Teaming with Nutrients, and Teaming with Fungi, some of the best and easiest to read nutrient books. It explains the soil microbiology, as well as just how, a better understanding how it is that your plants grow and why it is that they grow and why it is they do what they do. So we're super excited to have him on. So thanks for joining us a lot, Jeff.
My pleasure. And Tom's a special guy. He's the guy that got me into this stuff. I mean, it was just we've had this long-standing bet, and he sent me an email one night, blew my world apart. Never been the same. So that's Tom.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, we're both members of the Garden Writers of America, and it's, I don't think there are going to be too many people watching, but it's a pretty straight group. But Tom was a member, and George was a member, Jorge Cervantes. And so Tom, George, and I would hang out at the Garden Writers, and we would argue about organics versus non-organics. And one day, I said, Jesus, you guys don't understand who I am. My parents put Miracle-Gro in business. Long story short, the guy who invented Miracle-Gro or marketed Miracle-Gro worked for my father and hated the job and went into the Miracle-Gro business because he hated the job that he had with my family. Anyway, I was a big Miracle-Gro user, and Tom was organic, and we would have this argument. And I said, listen, it doesn't matter if it's brown manure or green powder. It's nitrogen. The plant doesn't care.
Right.
And Tom said, no. I said, well, prove it to me. And he could never prove it to me. And so one night he sends me a picture, which is in Teaming with Microbes, of the nematode being strangled by a fungal hyphae that's protecting a tomato root. And I looked at the thing, and I had no idea what I was looking at. I had to figure out what I was looking at. This is back in the really early days of Google and all that kind of stuff. And I remember spending 2-3 days. I remember it was about 3 days. I mean, sleepless nights. My wife was back on the East Coast, and long winter night in Anchorage. And I finally figured out that he was telling me the soil food web was better than Miracle-Gro. And that was it. I never looked back. Never looked back. And it was because of Tom. And I think he laughs about it now. He can hardly shut me up anymore. He's probably thinking, what the hell did I do? But that was it. That was simply and that was probably about 1992 or something like that.
Yeah, I think he mentioned a little bit about that when he was on the show, saying that he introduced you to somebody else that we refer to people a lot, which was Dr. Elaine Ingram.
Oh, yeah.
And so we recommend her, class to any beginner or advanced or anyone. It's a
oh my God, yeah. Oh my God,
and take it more than once because
yeah,
you'll probably miss stuff along the way.
Well, what I always tell people, it's a little easier if you read Teaming with Microbes first. Then when you go listen, wow, you get so much more out of it, I think. But yeah, she's it. This is it. And he did introduce me to that series of nights. I came across the soil food web and I looked and looked and looked, finally found Dr. Elaine Ingham, read all the stuff I could get about it. I mean, I was hooked. Because it's just such a logical system. And of course, what you do with aquaponics is, to me, even better in a sense. I mean, it really is incredible. And we haven't talked long enough for the audience to realize that I'm literally crazy and you can hardly shut me up. But to me, what you guys do is you create your own rhizosphere. And
right.
those fish are the bacteria, and the fungi. It's just a beautiful little system that works just the same way. Anyway, I love it. Tom's responsible for it, and it's really changed my life. And I wrote the book, of course, for Dr. Elaine. After starting a listserv, she said, "Well, what else can you do?" And I said, "Well, maybe I can write a book." And so. Yeah, she's where it's at, and she continues to just amaze more and more people, and I think it's a great thing, really. But of course, you've got your own Dr. Elaine in Sylvia Bernstein, who I assume you guys all know.
I used to work for Sylvia once upon a time, actually.
Well, she was a member of the Garden Writers as well. But she came to the meetings and used to start talking about aquaponics. People looked at her like she was nuts, but we knew it was soil food web stuff. Made so much sense. So anyway, it was really a terrific thing to have Tom point out, and I've never looked back.
Awesome. Oops, sorry, I gotta shut off my other calls.
I told your mom not to call. Yeah.
No, it's actually one of the other people that comes on the show. I sent him a link to the podcast, and I don't know, for whatever reason, he connected to the wrong thing. We actually just had Charlie Schultz join us as well. He was one of the former heads of University of Virgin Islands. He was the one I was telling you about. He was actually using your book as a textbook. Thanks for joining us, Charlie.
Yeah, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, you're good now.
All right.
Just mute your mic when you're not talking, because you got a little bit of a loop.
Yeah, super. All right, thanks. I'm a little bit late. I just got a van and a tiny home stuck in mud.
No worries.
Or soil, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, well, mud.
It depends.
It's just not dirt. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's the stuff underneath your bed. I always tell people, that's dirt.
Dirt's a dirty word, right?
Right.
Exactly. Right.
So I read your book. I read all of your books actually multiple times. Do you want to explain to people a little bit about more? You guys talk about you talk a lot about nematodes and protozoa and bacteria. Do you want to explain maybe the different roles that they play? And then the other thing I thought was super fascinating after reading your book was learning how there's different forms of nitrogen based off of fungi versus bacteria, and it really got me thinking in terms of how that plays a role into aquaponics and why it is that certain methods work better than others because of the microbials.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, I can probably do that in about let's see if I can do it in 3 minutes. The way the system works out in the wild, the reason why you don't need to use Miracle-Gro on the redwoods, that they get to be 500 feet, 750 feet tall and 500 years old without Miracle-Gro, is because what they're doing is taking photosynthetic energy, and about 40 to 50% of it, and using it not to produce tree leaves and not to produce bark and any of that stuff, but to drip things out of the roots called exudates. Those exudates contain lots of carbon and other materials, but carbon in particular, and they attract bacteria and fungi who need that carbon in order to survive. And so they are attracted to the rhizosphere because the plant is sweating. And then the bacteria and fungi attract nematodes and protozoa. Now, the nematodes are true worms. They're blind. Anytime you're on the web and there's a story about, you know, a worm infecting somebody, they always show a picture of a nematode. They're microscopic, they're hair-like, and protozoa are the things you studied in 10th grade. Amoeba, which you never saw, but you always said you did, and paramecium. You remember those little things? You had to take a little diagram home of this thing that looked like the bottom of a shoe, and it had a gullet. Those are paramecium, and one paramecium will eat 10,000 bacteria every day. And it eats that bacteria, and it's able to eat 10,000 bacteria because it digests what it needs, and it gets rid of what it doesn't need. And it turns out that what it gets rid of, what it poops out in essence, is mostly nitrogen in plant usable form. And it's happening right there in the rhizosphere, and the plant is very happy. Now, the fungus do the same thing. They get eaten, and they get eaten, say, maybe by an amoeba or a nematode, and the fungus left over is also nitrogen that feeds the plant. Okay, now, in both instances, the type of nitrogen is ammonia. It's just always ammonia. But if you have soils or water that's got more bacteria than fungus, we say bacterially dominated, then the nitrogen-fixing bacteria convert that ammonia into nitrate. So there's two kinds of nitrogen. So if you've got more fungal than bacteria, it stays in the ammonia form. And if you've got more bacteria than fungal, it gets converted very quickly in a two-step process into nitrate. So you got two kinds of nitrogen, and it turns out that some plants they'll live off of either kind of nitrogen, but some like one kind of nitrogen more than the other. So how do we figure that out? Well, the easiest way to figure it out is if the plant stays in the ground for more than a year, then it likes the soil to be more fungally dominated, and it likes the ammonia type nitrogen. If the plant is in the ground for less than a year, so that would be a row crop. Cannabis is a row crop. Annuals, vegetables, those like the nitrogen, and they like the nitrate nitrogen, so they like bacterially dominated soil or bacterially dominated aquaponic situations. So that's it in a nutshell. Did I do it in 3 minutes?
Well, and that's because the ammonical is not as available as the nitrate, isn't that why? Because the row crops, they need it. It's a shorter thing, so they use the nitrate because it's a shorter grow period. Where a weed or a tree that you say likes the ammonical is because it hasn't broke down into nitrate, right?
You know, that's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is you know, that the plant is just designed to take in a different kind of nitrogen. I mean, and that's the second book.
Okay.
Which is, but you're right. I mean, and so these plants are adapted. And so when you take a nitrogen that's nitrate nitrogen and you put it into a forest tree situation, the tree doesn't do as well because it's not adapted to that. It doesn't want that. It's able to take that ammonical and use it, whereas the annual plant isn't. So yeah, you're right. Definitely.
Don't plants convert nitrate back to ammonia before they use it? They use molybdenum along with the protein in order to break that down. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That happens on the inside. So the question is, how does it get into the plant? And that's why I wrote the second book, because after I wrote the first book, you know, I was thinking, geez, okay, so now I know how the stuff gets to the root. You know, it's the soil food web where you've got all the little guy gets eaten by the bigger guy and there's all that pooping and stuff. And then I sat there one day and I said, well, how the hell does this stuff get in the plant? I mean, all these years we talk about growing plants and stuff. You water it and it goes in xylem and phloem and all that crap, you know. But that doesn't answer the question. How does the stuff get in the plant? And once it gets in the plant, what happens to it? So that became a 3-year quest. I jumped into a rabbit hole and, you know, sort of taught myself what went on there. And it's fascinating because you've only got 18 elements that the plant needs, not the 65 that are in the kelp that everybody uses, you know. It's only got 18 elements. That's all it needs. It doesn't need anything else. That other stuff probably isn't doing a damn thing. But in any case, you use these 18 elements. As I like to say, you can't play cards with 18 cards. How do you make all the molecules that are everything inside a plant and then everything you are? The plants are able to make every single amino acid. We can only make, 10 of them or something of that sort, but we get the other ones from plants. So it just drove me crazy. And so I thought, geez, you know, if we're gonna team with microbes, let's figure out what happens in the next step. And then in the middle of a couple of years after the first one came out, mycorrhizal fungi, which was sort of laughed at 10, 15 years ago, people started saying, you know what, maybe we can use them. And hey, look, this one, we can grow this one in the lab. We never could before. And then they discovered, gee, you use too much nitrogen and you use too much phosphorus, they don't grow. Well, no wonder we've been telling people they're no good. We're using Cornell mix. We're using super soil. You know what I mean? I mean, how the hell are we supposed to grow mycorrhizal fungi if the plant's getting everything it needs from us? And so people figured it out. And now all of a sudden, people start to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we don't need to give plants everything. Maybe the fungi will go out and get it. And so I revised the first book. And then a couple of years later, there was so much information, probably from 1,000 to 25,000 papers in a couple of years. And I said, oh, gosh, I think it's time for a third book. And so that's the third book, which is teaming with microbes. And they all fit together so that as you think about the ammonia, nitrogen, yeah, then you got to think about how does it get in the plant? And then you're right. What happens when it gets into the plant? And how does that happen? You know, what's the enzymatic action? What activity happens inside a plant that we as growers can impact in a positive way? Or put a different way, that we as growers impact in a negative way that we should stop doing. So
yeah, I feel like that's a much more effective way to put it, in my opinion. Yeah. You know, I feel like we've been over gardening for so many years in so many different ways that, you know, obviously we can't just not do anything and expect to get ideal results, but the amount of work that I feel like, or more like the amount of feed, I guess, that we thought was standard to give a plant, or that needed it, or that we thought we were doing good with, really, you know, was probably a waste in a lot of situations. And I think aquaponics was really sort of what brought that about for me, like in understanding that it was more than just how the plant gets food. Like, okay, we know microbes, you know, they help make nutrients more available, and feeding the plant is great. But there's like layers to it. And I think Dr. Lane Ingram's class was really sort of like what came together. Well, it's not just that it feeds the plant along the way. Once it develops, in the way that it protects itself, it also protects the plant. So the root systems are healthier and wider and grow faster and don't develop pathogens or other stuff nearly as easily as when you tried to, you know, have like a hydro grow with a 5.8 pH and, you know, poured liquid nutrients in all the time. You know, you didn't have to change the reservoir every, you know, 3 weeks or whatever it was that you had to do. And so, in my quest to figure out why that worked, like, why is that, you know, so much different when so much of it is contradictory? You know, you had hydro, which is, oh, keep everything clean and keep the pH really low and keep, you know, all this. You know, aquaponics is just like, oh, you know, we put the fish in the tank and we let them shit everywhere, and, you know, like all this stuff. And that's really contradictory. But obviously, if you can grow big tomatoes, you could grow anything else. And so it, you know, kind of came to a head for me in that class, in that it's not just how it feeds, but the competitive exclusion and diversity, healthy diversity that you get allows the plant to, you know, not just take up nutrients more effectively, but also have a healthier and easier time against pests and all kinds of other things. So definitely agree with you on a lot of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I certainly don't want to leave anybody the impression that it's all about pooping and eating and, you know, feeding the plant in that regard, because you're absolutely right. The diversity of the microbial population in that rhizosphere, or the diversity of the microbial population around the mycorrhizal fungi, because they have a rhizosphere of their own, so to speak, it's called a mycosphere. That diversity is producing antibiotics. They're preventing monocultures from developing. They're creating soil structure, the beginnings of soil structure. So they do all sorts of things, all of which ends up aiding the plant. And I like to think in a plant concentric manner, you know, and all of it triggered as a result of the plant putting that exudate out there and attracting them all. So, yeah, it's such a beautiful system that it just makes so much sense. And of course, you know, you guys know as much as anybody else, the ability to make it a sustainable system is, or at least to see a goal of sustainability as being achievable, you know, makes a very, very big difference. To me, you know, that was the biggest problem with the other way of growing things. The lack of sustainability, just, you know, it's sort of like, it's like growing weed and using pesticide. I mean, come on, it's an oxymoron. You know, who wants to eat or smoke weed with pesticide in it? Nobody. So you know, I mean, it's just an oxymoron. It's just not even mentioned. So all of these things come out, and of course, you're absolutely right. I think when you talk about aquaponics, you know, it's almost easier to see it. Again, from my perspective, I always say, you know, those fish are, you know, those are the fertilizer bags, and the fertilizer all wrapped into one, and it's those are the bacteria and nematodes and protozoa, and they're doing it. It's, you know, it's a beautiful system. So.
Oh, and we actually use a method called dual root zone planting. So we take a pot, the bottom half of it's the hydrogen, and that floods and drains just like you would in a normal aquaponic system in a flood table. And then the upper half is soil. So we have a whole area for our mycorrhizae, for our terrestrial microbes, and the other half for our aquatic microbes, which have their own web, which is completely different, in some ways different, in some ways the same, depending on what microbe you're talking about and what nutrient process. That's entirely separate. And to be, you know, I'm super excited and super glad to have people like you, and I know Ken has had people come out and test his microbiology of that. I know there's a group from NASA that came and tested the different microbiome from his aquaponic system in order to try and figure out which microbes were required in order to go, you know, if they wanted to do a Mars mission or something, you know, which microbes are critical to doing, you know, breaking down phosphorus, breaking down nitrogen, breaking up potassium in an aquatic environment, because it's different than the ones that are in soil. Not all of them are different, but some of them are, which is really cool.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, you're right. I mean, but they're complementary, as you say. I mean, and so you can use them both. Oh my goodness gracious! You know, my only problem is that I'm beginning to people send me microbes all the time to test, and I understand how you can have one kind of mycorrhizal fungi and have it be effective. But when somebody says to me, here are 5 bacterium, put them in your soil, they're going to be effective. And I'm thinking about this, you know, the 55,000 different kinds of bacteria, you know, so, you know, what you're talking about is a whole system's worth of, it's not 1 or 2 kinds of bacteria. You're talking about a whole system. Now, I use a modified aquaponic system in my winter gardens. I have what I call koi. They're just 15-cent goldfish that I've kept for years and years and years. And so, of course, when I say my winter garden, here I'm in Anchorage, Alaska, and that means that I got to pick the stuff up and bring them in, and they're 9 months in my greenhouse. And so I use the water to feed my plants.
Sure.
God, you know, and I love it. And I keep thinking to myself, well, let's see now. What if I stuck a whole plant in there? You know, I keep thinking it's not fair to the goldfish, but I'm awfully close, I got to say. So I think maybe this winter I'm going to have to do a real system. You may have hooked me in a little bit, but
that'd be cool. Yeah. We love this.
I know. Well, for example, in an aquatic environment, you have nitrous You have Nitrobacter to Nitrosoma to or Nitrospira to Nitrosoma, in terms of the evolution of that. And then we still don't, I know Mammoth company Mammoth P has done some work on the aquatic version of the phosphorus breakdown, but no one's ever actually really sat down and mapped out the aquatic version for potassium and for calcium and for iron and for boron and for manganese and for molybdenum and so on and so on. So that's one of the areas that I'm super excited for people like you, as well as some of the companies that are out there that are working on this stuff, and see what to map this stuff out so we can figure out what we need to boost, not just broadly boosting. And I heard you speak on a recent interview with Dude Grows. They're very good friends of mine, about how it's not so much important, especially with the mycorrhizae, that's just blanketly put lots of different mycorrhizae. It's very important as to which mycorrhizae. Do you want to talk on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about cannabis so far, well, first of all, there are about, I think, 350 known mycorrhizal fungi. And one of the big problems, and that's since 1895, people have discovered those. There are about 15 that we know how to duplicate and can breed enough sufficiently so that we can, commercialize them. There's only one that will inoculate cannabis. So, when you go out and buy something that's designed, for cannabis, it really only needs to have Rhizophagus interacetes is the name of it. That's the current name based upon its rDNA. It's also called Glomus mossi, which was the first one that was identified or was able to be grown in the lab. It's also been called Glomus interacetes and Rhizophagus mossi. So it's got a lot of different names, but that's the only one you need. If you're buying other ones, unless you've got a cover crop, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. Again, a good case of, okay, go overboard, more is better, which is sort of like, that's what you were talking about, Marty, before, about over gardening. More is better all the time. No, that's not true. You want the right balance, as you know.
Right. Or even, I think a lot of people think that, oh, well, I can put in as much as I can put in until I burn my plants, or like, as long as I'm not seeing anything negative, I must be doing good. And I think that there's, that's not really, you could not see negative effects like burning and still be stunting growth or prohibiting the plant from growing or attracting insects. There's a number of different things that can be negative effects of adding too much nutrients that aren't just nutrient burn.
Yeah, and one of the problems I've always had, and I talked about this in a recent podcast before, is that how do you tell whether what you're doing is working, in a timely basis? And to me, the most important thing is, am I increasing the microbes? Am I supporting my microbes, or are my microbes declining? I want to know that, and that's always been the big problem. Now, I can send in to Soil Food Web Lab and find out whether I've got a fungal versus a bacterial dominance, but it takes some money, and it takes a couple, 3, 4, 5 days. I want to know right away in the field, and so lately I've been dealing with this gadget called a microbiometer, and you take a soil sample and you mix it right up there in the field, and you put a drop on this little card, and you take a picture of it with your cell phone, and it gives you a number for what your microbiomass is. So if I am putting compost down and I take a test afterwards and I've got a higher microbiomass, I know that compost is doing something. If it's got a lower microbiomass, I know I've done something wrong. So those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for. How do you test? How do you do it in a way that we can all do it, so that we can tell, for example, this is what I'm really looking for, and that's why I mentioned this company. And it's, if you go to microbiometer.com, you'll see it. When the inventor tells me a cannabis plant is going into a flowering situation, its exudates drop. oh my gosh, if we can measure that with this gadget, and he claims we're going to be able to, well, then all of a sudden, you know, we picked up a piece of information that we can use for something to happen before it happens. Whoa,
Right.
I want to know that, you know. Or let's take your fish. At some point in time, that poop becomes usable. That urine becomes usable. You got a couple of week period where it's not.
Sure.
And there are things that happen at the period of time when it becomes usable that increase the microbial biomass. If you could measure that, of course, you guys know it takes 2 weeks or whatever the time is. Wow. But there are things we can measure, I hope, and do it with enough people so that we can get new tools. We're not going to get help from the government in this cannabis field. We're going to have to do it ourselves. And we're going to have to do it in crowdsourcing. That's what I'm getting at. You can't send Jeff Lowenfels or Microbe and say, test this. You got to send 35 people and say, test it this way using this instrument and these parameters. So anyway, yeah.
Well, I think it runs kind of a nice parallel against some of the systems that Ken is running at his farm over there. I know he has, you know, the cameras that look down onto his plants and reads the plants in all kinds of different ways. What is it, Ken? It's like growth and a number of different things, right?
Yeah, those cameras, they can measure temperature, CO2 levels, humidity, red, green, blue, par light, and a variety of other parameters. Yeah, it's really fascinating being able to take pictures every 15 seconds and measuring all those different factors, and then being able to pinpoint a particular plant if it's experiencing stress, basically by the logarithms that allow that information to be taken in. So it's just fascinating how the whole ag tech sector is going to be changing, and the idea of being able to take a drone instead of having to provide a nutrient boost or a foliar spray to an entire field or an entire crop, you'd be able to target each individual plant and give that plant exactly what it needs. So yeah, I think it's fascinating with this microbial and all this information that's coming out in technology nowadays. You know, the whole agricultural landscape is going to be drastically changed, I think, in the near future.
Oh, there's no question. Yeah,
I think it'd be neat too to incorporate something like he's talking about, where your system could also, you know, take essentially like a snapshot of the microbial profile with an instrument like what he has, you know, sometime in the future, because that would give you another level to sort of incorporate into your software and be able to, I'm sure, make use of that too, and like your feeding schedule or any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that power comes from information. And again, we're not going to get it from the government. It's pretty clear. You know, we got a little, you know, little elf down there, or cookie elf. You know, we're gonna be lucky if we can even be talking about this stuff without putting, you know, pseudonames. You know, I'm very good friends with Jorge Cervantes, and you know, George didn't go by George up until about 4 or 5 years ago, and he's thinking to himself now, oh my God,
right.
Now they're going to come get him. He's taking his sunglasses off, you know, and it's you know, it's a serious problem.
Remember we used to do the DVDs and he was all in green? He'd dye himself green back in the day.
That's my hero there. Jorge's my hero, man.
He's a funny guy. He's a funny guy, but he, you know, he's the first to tell you, God, the information that we can gather now from electronics and these microbial tests. This test uses a membrane. Well, first of all, using the cell phone is so cool, but it uses a membrane. She's going to be able to tell you fungal, bacteria, pH. You know, it's. I mean, this is medical grade stuff. She's a medical grade microbiologist. It's just, you know, and just. We've got a window here which may close tomorrow, you know, when Sessions decides to shut all this stuff down. But my God, we got to push this stuff as far as we can. All of Dr. Elaine's compost tea work and, you know, all this mycorrhizal stuff and, oh my gosh, and cover crops. And but you're right, the ag sector will never be the same now that we have Google and cell phones and.
I feel like you know more. I feel like you know more than most. Do you want to talk a little bit about how the cannabis industry and some of the innovative things and some of the research from us is kind of spilling over to general agriculture? Because I think a lot of people don't realize how much that a lot of the funding for general agriculture and production actually came out of the cannabis industry or stuff that was discovered in the cannabis industry and is now being applied to to ag crops. Do you want to talk a little bit on that, or?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit on it. I mean, you guys probably know more than I do, but you know, I just came back from the Garden Writers of America, where we had our conference, you know, that Tom and I always go to, and there's a guy named Dan Himes who's a very famous perennial plant explorer developer. He has a thing called Terra Nova Nurseries, and he and I gave the very first talk the Garden Writers of America have ever had on why a garden writer might want to write about cannabis. They never would let us do it. George used to submit his books, and they'd, you know, summarily throw them out. But it's not so much that it's that people who are regular gardeners are coming around to the way that cannabis gardeners or cannabis growers grow. First of all, organically. They understand, and they understand that a lot of the stuff that they're using, like mycorrhizal fungi that they buy, great white shark, etc., you know, that all developed in the hydroponics industry for the cannabis industry. You know, they understand, you know, the use of biologicals in a way that they wouldn't before, because now they, you know, they've seen these big rooms with these big green plants everywhere. You know, so they try to emulate that kind of stuff. A lot of the soil mixes have been developed, and every time I see a new plant at this particular convention, there were 3 companies that had new products like this microbiometer, and one of them was a bacterial mix. And when I said to him, gee, how's it do with cannabis? First of all, you know, he was pretty taken aback. But second of all, when he saw nobody was looking because he had a stigma, he said, "Oh my God, what do you think we developed this stuff?" I mean, you know, I mean, there's direct correlation. There's direct correlation. There's a mycorrhizal fungus that I use from a guy in Rhode Island who's a pumpkin grower. You know, I know where he got his advice about his mycorrhizal fungus. It came from a guy who develops a product that is used by almost every cannabis grower, or was for a long time. So there's been an incredible infection of the home market with cannabis techniques, and you know, you look at the grow pots. Those aren't for my deck. Those grow pots are definitely for the cannabis field. I know the guy, you know, but people use them. So you think about the, you know, the netting. Okay, you know, I mean, where did that come from? That, you know, that wasn't for my nasturtiums. So a lot of this stuff is, and then of course you go to every town in America now that particularly where it's legal, and there is a grow store. What do we used to call them? Hydroponic stores.
Right.
They're not hydroponic stores anymore. They're grow stores, and they've got as much soil stuff and soil food web stuff as they have hydroponic stuff.
Right.
So yeah,
we have lots of them. Like there's probably 10 of them within, you know, the little Rogue Valley right here. There's maybe even more than that.
Yeah, and they say that cannabis. They say, I mean, I've sort of coined the phrase and steal it and spread it. Cannabis is the next tomato, as far as the home grower.
Sure.
It's a beautiful plant. There are infinite colors and varieties and shapes and sizes and tastes and smells. Some have leaf color, some have flower color, some are tall. So, you know, this is a landscape plant if I ever saw one. This is a deck plant. And what we've discovered in the gardening field is that people are growing in pots now. They're growing on their condo and their decks. They don't have big farms. They don't have big houses. And this is the plant. This is it. So yeah, it's exciting. It's very exciting.
So we often talk about silica and the importance of silica. Do you want to talk on silica a little bit? There's some people out there that still don't think they need to dose it, which I think is kind of goofy.
Well, I mean, let's start with soil. I mean, the silica is phenomenal for the soil. It's just good in the soil. It makes for good soil structure. Silica, you know, is a carbon twin in a sense. And you know, there are some people who claim it's an essential element. And so, yeah, you should include it. Is it one of the 18? you know. What do you think, Roger?
Well,
We'll leave it at.
I think that
If it ain't one of the 18, you should have 19.
Yeah, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, you have to take into consideration not just the plant, but this, in my case anyway, the soil food web critters that feed the plant. And it might not be the nematode, it might be a springtail way up on the top, that does use silica, or a sow bug that circulates its own urine because it needs copper so badly, that it eats its own poop because it needs copper, so you got to keep an open mind about this stuff, but there are only 18. And if you did not have silica at all, would you be able to grow a wonderful plant? Yes. Does it seem to make a difference? Yes. Why? I'm not so sure.
Okay, 18 and a half then.
I've read some really interesting white papers where they took side-by-side crops, both cannabis as well as a few other vegetable crops, and they actually showed a difference in gene expression in genes that specifically corresponded to heat stress and disease resistance and the plant's immune system, and that the silica played a role in gene expression specifically, which I found was very interesting, and I was kind of curious if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, how does it get in? How does it get inside the cell? It doesn't, I don't think. It's certainly maybe in the cell walls, but, does it trigger the signal? Does it bump against a particular kind of, membrane protein and cause it to do something? I don't know. It's not something but I can tell you what, I'm going to spend a little bit of time this weekend taking a look at it.
The next book will be teeming with silica.
Well, you never know. I might have to put a special edition of Teeming with Nutrients out.
I'm kind of hoping to see if you ever end up doing like a teaming with aquatics or something to talk about aquatic microbes.
Here's the problem: when you write a book, you go into this little hole in the ground, a rabbit hole. And you're down in that rabbit hole all by yourself. And, every now and then, my wife, I could hear my wife saying, time to eat. Oh, shit, I got to come out of the rabbit hole. And then I got to leave everything. Where did I read this and where is, so you never want to leave the rabbit hole because you lose yourself. You lose your place. And so you spend 3 really unpleasant years with yourself in this little dark rabbit hole. And then you get out of it and you go, I am never going to do that again. And for the first book, that lasted about 6 months. The second book, that lasted about a year. And for this book, it may last the rest of my life. I don't know.
Well, you've got a solid collection. You go that route. You've got 3 good ones in the bank, so nothing wrong with that.
Well, I appreciate it. But I always tell people it's not me, it's the subject matter. I caught the organic wave on that first book. And the wave is still going. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, I never thought, but when I was writing that book, well, I thought it, but when I would give talks, people would laugh at me. And so I stopped saying it. We walk into a Safeway today or whatever your supermarket is, there's an organic section there, and it's like the blob. It's getting bigger. Meat, milk, vegetables. I always like to go up to my manager. At the beginning, I used to say, "What do you think? We only like some of our food organic. The rest of it, we want chemicals." But
I just want to reverse it. Like if we could get 10% chemical food and then 90% organic food throughout the rest of the store, then I would be happy. Well,
we're getting it. We're gonna get 100%.
Yeah, it's getting closer.
Yeah. Well,
especially here, and even some of the bigger stores, like Safeway, for instance, is one of the ones that they're getting tons of more organic stuff, and it's nice because they're a chain store, so they're everywhere you go. You go on vacation. We know if we can't find a natural food store, at least we can find a Safeway and be able to get some pretty good options.
So we're going to be able to get aquaponic fish, a little label.
I'm spoiled at home.
Enough, actually.
Tomatoes and lemon cucumbers and all this stuff.
That would be amazing.
Well, we're working on the fish side of it too. Yeah, we're working on the fish side.
Yeah, I know we're working on a different type of I
Bugs
should
too.
mention this yet, but
Yeah.
they're well, you guys saw how the organic certification of, if you guys are following that today, the organic certification looks like they're going to deny aquaponic and hydroponic growers. So we're going to have to set out our own standard that's still, you know, highly pure and accounts for all the things that would normally be consumer concerns. And you know, if they're going to deny us organic, we have to come out with our own.
Well,
It's that
I think,
simple.
I mean, and I think that's probably almost in a way better, because I think you get to control it a little bit better, but you don't have to
Not
pick
only
up the
that,
baggage.
Current organic doesn't account for carbon footprint or a whole lot of other things that are now actually additional factors beyond just the stuff that they were originally, you know, trying to address when they originally set out with that standard. So I think we could do much better than the organic standard as it stands now.
Yeah, and it'll be an
saying earlier about the testing and not even being able to count on the government, whatever. What you guys are talking about right now, I think it is better. I think Jeff's 100% right, that it be left in the hands of the passionate experts who eat and breathe this stuff. Come up with the system. It's going to be a better mousetrap. The world's going to follow. And I think it's going to be awesome when all you guys kind of get your section of that book or that manual together.
That will work fine for a while
operating
for
procedure.
cannabis
I
goes.
think it's going to be awesome, dude.
It
Not
works
just for
as far as
cannabis, but for
it's
crops
not
too.
gonna work in the vegetable industry, because in the vegetable industry, the fact that you can't be certified organic, you know, but as far as cannabis goes, I can see where setting our own, having our own area. But if you try to, because I'm a commercial hydroponic grower for vegetables, I grow for whole, well, not currently up, I've been down, I'm not going to go into all that, but I've been down for a couple of years. But my farm, I grew for Whole Foods. Okay, I grew for Whole Foods, and in South Carolina, you can get registered using the hydroponics as organic. But unless you do that and go through 4 years of qualification, you're considered conventional. So I have to sell my produce in a lot of times for the same price as a guy that's a row crop, and he's not spending anywhere near the money or the quality of the fruit. It's, you know, I surpass their quality. I mean, Whole Foods love my peppers. You know, I'm a pepper grower. I specialize in peppers. I love peppers. Love to cook. But I just wanted to throw that in about that when you were saying, you know, we create our own niche. But that's only going to work in the cannabis industry. It's until maybe, you know, another 20 or 30. I'm not saying never, but, you know, because never is a long time. But right now, as far as I know, I've been affected by that in my own business. So I know it's going to be a real tough sell to ever have our own hydroponic or aquaponics niche that they consider where they're going to pay you more money like they do organic. Because if you got that organic certification, you get 2 or 3 times as much for your produce right off the bat.
I think that, you know, when you start with a plant like cannabis already, you know, we touched on the fact that it's responsible for a lot of research, and part of the reason is because people are willing to pay so much more for the product itself. You know, people don't pay, you know, $2,000 a pound for indoor tomatoes, you know, but they gladly will for quality medicine, and especially in the right markets. So, you know, I feel like just the fact that it doesn't really cost all that much different to grow a tomato plant versus a cannabis plant, but you have such a drastic difference in cost that, you know, it really allows for a lot of that research to happen and be self-funded, whereas you couldn't really do that if you were, you know, growing corn or something like that, because you're just trying to make a living on the profit selling your stuff at, you know, subsidized, extremely low costs. And so, which I think is part of the reason why a lot of cannabis growers are concerned about legalization and large farms and the, you know, the price dropping out in a lot of places, even though we haven't seen that, like even in Colorado, you know, it sort of dropped initially and has stayed down pretty low, but it hasn't gone to the $10 a pound that, you know, a lot of people were freaking out about it going to. And but I do see that there, you know, there's probably a line in there somewhere, you know, as we get more commercial and you know, more of that stuff happens, there's, you know, I think at least the potential for another price drop, and with more states that come on board, and I think things will really change if we ever get, you know, actual lift of prohibition to where, you know, you can open up state lines, for instance, in, you know, a state like Nevada that can't really meet its own needs, in terms of cannabis can go next door to California, which is, it's always done anyway since forever. You know, to be able to just legally transfer those, like you can legally transfer tomatoes. You know, there's, I feel like when that happens, there'll be such a large boost that might be a time in which you could see that fall in the market. But I do think that it's interesting that you have such a similar cost in terms of growing a plant versus what you can produce and sell that product for. If you have you're trying to run a small farm and you can all of a sudden sell a product that's, you know, 1,000 times higher in price, then it makes it a lot easier to become sustainable. Even if you're just a small place, you're not just selling kale or peppers or whatever. And like Roger's talking about, you can sell your product for 3 to 4 times as much by getting it labeled organic or all of those things. It's that same kind of effect to where, you know, you need that as the small grower. And I think it sucks for them to take away, you know, just to say, to deny it, to say that if you're aquaponics, you're going to get denied. If you're, you know, hydro, you're going to get denied, without even really factoring in what it is, just with a generic label on it. Is really going to, is again,
on
only
that
going
note, though, I mean, the USDA just did a research study on the microbiology of both soil and aquaponic systems and organic hydroponic systems. Guess what came in third of the 3? Hydroponic organic. Okay, guess what came in second? Soil. Guess what came in first? Aquaponic.
Yeah.
Guess what comes in double soil and aquaponic? Dual root zone, because you got both. So to tell me that dual root zone aquaponics is not organic is laughably stupid. I have double the number of organic microbes in the soil zone of a soil or a hydroponic grower. How are you going to tell me that's not organic?
So do you?
The only thing I've got to say real quick about that, because we've been building on this real quick so I can let Jeff get back in here, is that, but the thing is still, not everybody is using totally organic stuff in their aquaponics. So you got to get that level of where they've got to use, like some of you guys are totally, like BrayneGro, he's 100% organic. Does everything he adds to his fish are all organic, right? So I just wanted to throw that in. And Jeff, I saw Jeff start to open his mouth.
No, I was just thinking, I think the aquaponics gets painted. You shouldn't be lumped with hydroponics. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree too. And I'm a hydroponic guy, so I agree.
In aquaponics, we rely solely on our microbes. They're the single most important aspect of the entire grow. Without them, the whole system collapses immediately. So to say that that's not organic is ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, so what are you telling me? Those fish are full of, anyway. I think
it's so organic. The organic beings with the fins on them are frickin' swimming around. That's how organic it is, okay?
Robots.
I'm just saying here.
Little robots.
Yeah.
Little fertilizer robots.
Exactly. So again, I think you got a situation where it'll be better, I think, if it's a separate and not linked with hydroponics. That's for sure. You know, I mean, I think that's a bad duality there for the aquaponics side.
I think
what I've learned about aquaponics, I believe it. You know, if you do follow the guidelines, this is as organic as anything I've seen. You know, it's certainly a lot more organic than Miracle-Gro, that's for sure.
It's almost in a way like even better, because even if, like he mentioned, some people don't just add in, you know, only organic stuff. You know, some people add in different things from different sources, and you know that just because it's fish safe doesn't mean it's organic, and you know all that different stuff. And again, organic is just a label that you pay for and all that stuff too. But the fact that it is still dominated by microbial life is going to give you that buffer, the same kind of soil that in the same way that our natural soils and microbes break down that stuff and separate it and feed the plants what they need and expose of what they don't, then you have to have that buffer there in order for aquaponics to work. Like Steve was talking about, if you produced an aquaponic, let's tomato or pepper or whatever, then if you produce that fruit in an aquaponic system, then that's almost a better label as it being an aquaponic than it being organic. Does that make sense in a way? Because you can't really have that microbial buffer. The system can't be successful without that microbial buffer there. So you wouldn't produce the fruit. You wouldn't have anything to sell if it wasn't successful. Whereas in a hydro grow or any of those other ones, you can cheat and you can do it different ways and put stuff in without having those microbes there to help keep out those different pathogens that they tested for. They tried to find it. In the test that Steve's talking about was essentially sponsored by people that wanted to demonstrate that soil was better, still had to publish it, but then in the end, we didn't end up getting the certification anyway. So it's a little frustrating. But
But then also from the marketing standpoint, you can also think about it that when people see that on the shelf, they're going to think, oh, this was sustainably grown.
Right.
So that's going to be more attractive to some people.
Yeah, I think the aquaponic label should just become better than the organic label. Like, I think we should just not care that we can't get their stupid label that doesn't really mean anything, and understand that just the label of an aquaponic product getting to the market has already gone through competitive exclusion in order to succeed. In order to produce the fruit, they had to at least follow certain guidelines, and more so, I think, than soil in order to be successessul.
It's like the early days of organics. You used to see all the hoops that everybody had to jump through that were doing organics, and then it took off and it took off. I think the difference here is you've got the internet. You can get the word out faster. But I 100% support what Marty's saying. It is a different thing. You can be told something's organic, or you can go on the website and you can look at the fish from the farm that you're about to eat the salad from and go, those fish look damn good. There's a certain part of you that just recognizes maybe I shouldn't eat something that has a longer shelf life than I do. Maybe it's a benefit to me to be eating all these live things in me, and I can get on the website and I can see the fish are swimming under my broccoli, and that's what's on my plate. I agree with Marty. I really do.
And I think places like Ken's Farm is a perfect example of that, where you can go and see where the stuff is grown. There's a transparency to it that I don't feel like you get when you go through other places. And that to me, of having the label being aquaponics and the transparency of being able to see where it's grown and produced sustainably and responsibly, is every bit as valuable as the organic label that you could pay for, that really is just to make sure that you pay for it.
That's something I actually realized Ken was here. Okay, I see you ready to speak, Ken, because I was going to ask you something anyway, because I brought up and I forgot you, because I've never been on the show before. I forgot that you're on here, and you got a large, way larger than me, commercial aquaponics grow. So what are your thoughts about what I was saying about how the organic and the aquaponic would settle in price wise in the as far as your margins in the store, like to sell it and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, we market all of our products as aquaponics. We've chosen not to get organic certification because we honestly believe with aquaponics, the quality is way better than you can. Organic is almost an insult to the quality of what we can produce in our farm. Yeah, it's an interesting combination. I mean, Steve had mentioned earlier that there were a couple of NASA microbiologists that came out to our farm and took some samples from ours, from a couple other aquaponics facilities, actually from a hydroponics facility as well, and tested the microbiome of those different types of systems. And they found there was almost no correlation whatsoever between the microbiome of any of those different types of systems. Now, even the hydroponic system had probably half the microbiology is one of the aquaponic systems, but there was still an enormous amount of microbiology there, and supposedly a sterile system. The two closest microbiomes of any of those were between a koi pond and an aquaponic system that were across the street from each other. So that was the closest sort of comparison. So it's fascinating, really, in that sense. And what Marty was saying, with aquaponics, we market it as that way. It's know your farm, know your farmer. One of the great things about being where we are is in the San Francisco Bay Area, you really have a wise consumer base, or a very knowledgeable consumer base that understands where food comes from, and they're demanding local stuff. They want to know who their farmer is, where their food is grown, how their food is grown. It's not this, we don't want it labeled because it's too confusing and it's going to be too expensive. No, the consumers are actually demanding local stuff and making sure that they know the people that's growing their food and how was this food grown. And with aquaponics, one of the great things is it is that natural ecosystem that is really super efficient at growing food, not only in that efficiency, but also in flavor and taste, and having the fish as well. It's really an amazing experience being able to grow food for people. Jessica and I both say it is both an honor and a responsibility to grow food, and we're super happy to be able to do that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and I think that aquaponics, is definitely just an extension of so many different things of sustainability and different things that have occurred over time. Like one of the terms that we talk about a lot in the PFA group is the biomimicry. So basically trying to copy on almost every level what happens in nature. And so when you think about that in terms of all these microbes that we're talking about, almost every large body of water that filters water in nature is going to have some type of fish in it. Once you get to a certain size, it's almost unavoidable. And then even still, you can shrink down to a size of a mud puddle, and you still have these little mud fish that can swim from mud puddle to survive. And so you get, I feel like that there are very few large bodies of water where these microbes wouldn't be present, where fish aren't extending microbes through their gut via their poop in the same way that we have gut and bacteria to break stuff down, and it gets extended through us and our waste. The same thing happens there. So I think in terms of true biomimicry, you have to include, fish and worms that are going to exist on pretty much any soil environment that is going to be producing plants are probably going to have to incorporate those in some line, even if it's not directly. Maybe it's down the line, or maybe it's right there close to it. But that extension is going to happen. So it makes sense to me when we test these environments and find out aquaponic systems have a higher diversity, because what's creating diversity is constantly in the system and making it more of an ecosystem that you can expand on. So you can have fish in the tank and worms in the bed. And, like Steve talks about with the dual root zone, we can add a soil layer. You get people that have lots of different biofilters, and inoculate with different things, or do ferments that we can add into the dual root zone layer. Like BrayneGro does a ton of that stuff on his channel. And so I think when you start incorporating those different elements of how nutrients get broken down, that's when I feel like it starts to really come together for me, in understanding, like, if you're really going to be like, especially like an indoor gardener, or try to create a system of your own, it's going to have to be pretty broad. It's not going to just be a simple thing to get a lot of success. You think about how complicated nature is, there's layers to it. So I feel like that's why the dual root zone is successful, or even larger systems like Ken has, where he has a lot of different, you have the black soldier flies, you have the red worms, you have a lot of different things. Even though they might not be in the closed loop, you bring them into the system at some point via teas or feeding or different stuff. And just copying what happens in nature becomes, you can definitely do it at different levels. It can be really simple or really advanced, but I feel like the more advanced you get and the more you copy what happens in nature, the more success you have, and the better the plants look and taste, smoke, whatever.
Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about as far as molasses? And then I don't know if you have any experience with lactobacillus ferments. Do you want to talk about those, either one of those or both, ideally?
Well, yeah, I'm not really, I use compost tea and I use compost extracts. I don't use EM. I've tried it. To me, I want diversity. I want numbers. I want mass. I don't, and I find that the EM, it's great for bokashi. It's terrific in the wintertime for when I got things I can't get out to the compost pile. It just doesn't have the big diversity that I want. I'm pretty sure that I've got those 14 different microbes already in my compost.
So one of the things that we found that works really good for is actually isolating some of the proteins for the plants, especially for chlorophyll specific proteins. and then introducing them into the root zone, we found that it actually will readily uptake pretty quickly via the root system.
And how do you isolate them?
Using lactobacillus, actually. Lactobacillus will actually pretty readily break down a lot of different plant sources into phytocyanin, which phytocyanin is your base protein for a lot of your chlorophylls, chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B at least. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And you don't think the stuff is already in the compost that you're putting down if you're using compost?
No, it's in it, but we've actually done some tests, and some of the plants we've done.
You all right?
Yeah, I just knocked my computer, that's all.
So we've actually tested some plants, mainly pepper plants actually, that weren't watered at all for 3 weeks, that someone who was supposed to be taking care of my garden forgot to take care of my garden. And then we went and introduced basically some isolated phytocyanin, and it basically resurrected the plants from death. The leaves are crispy. There wasn't a single leaf on it that would work. The soil was so hard you couldn't put your finger in it. It was just a brick, and put a little water plus phytocyanin, and the plants came back to life in a way that I've never seen anything else work. And I was curious to see if you could talk about that at all, or if you had any idea as to.
I don't. I would love that when we do these things, we always do controls. I never do, I do every plant. I figure, hey, this is working. I do every plant. And of course, even if I didn't do every plant in Alaska, we're only allowed 6, So how do you do controls on these things? That's is it the water? Is it I'm not doubting what you're saying. I'm just saying I don't have the facilities to be able to do that. So for example,
I'll send you some instructions and maybe you can test it.
I would love to test it, but again, I don't trust my testing. What I would like to do is take those instructions and have one of my friends down in Oregon who's got a license and's got enough plants to be able to test it so that we've got a control with it. That's all I'm saying. And I think
I'd love to.
Yeah, no, and I'm not doubting you by any means whatsoever, but I think that's one of the big problems we have as growers is, we know this works, so we do it.
You do it to everyone, yeah.
I love that.
Totally guilty of that. I do that all the time. And I'm also guilty of not really staying very consistent in the way that I grow. If I feel like I can improve on something, I change it, and then I change it on everything. So I don't think I've grown the same way twice in a way that I could really say that like this way is better than that way. Like they've all had certain measures of success, but I'm always hesitant to like say that one thing was better than the other, because there, like you're saying, like I only have a certain number of plants to grow it. So I didn't have a control group. I'm probably my biggest critic in that way, because I'll never be like, oh yeah, well, you definitely should do that because I did it this way and that way and it turned out like this, because I don't.
This is what I hate about you guys.
I
absolutely hate this about you guys. You're so freaking good at what you do, and a new grower like me who comes up, I don't know what it is you're doing. You change too many variables at once. You
just keep doing it, grow by
variables, and then report back to us idiots so we can learn how to grow.
See, that's why I don't think we're using the internet properly. I mean, I really think we've gotten so to the point now where people are willing to come off of Grass City and places like that, and be public and, and show their faces and talk about growing stuff and everything. So now we know people grow it. We know there's a lot of people grow it. Wouldn't it be terrific if we got like 20 different experiments and you just pick one? You don't do all 20. You just pick one of the experiments, and we get 10,000 people to do these experiments, and we come out and figure out what the answers are. I would love that, because what we've got now is some really good things that are working, but we're not positive why, and we need to know better. And some people have the tools and some don't. Some people have access to DNA genome sequencing and other people don't. And so we need to design these experiments for the average person so that we can test them and try them out and
right.
see if they work.
Well, we do a lot of that. We have a really great thing at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com that I've been teaching there for 3 years, and what's happened is we've gotten a following of membership. If we tell them that we're trying something, like I did this past year or so, I've been experimenting with much shorter photo periods, like 1410. So I'm vegging at 1410. And I've got like 25, 30 people on the forum growing at 1410. Now I decided this year I'm gonna lengthen it a little bit. I want a little more strength, you know, in my still I don't believe I'm getting the root zone, but I'm not getting the top growth as much as I'm, you know, the strength. Although I don't want a real woody plant anyway, in my opinion. I don't want my plant to get super woody, but I see a lot of real woody plants out there, and my stuff's always drooping because it's, you know, it's not, I guess I don't give it enough nitrogen or whatever. But it's funny you were mentioning that earlier too, about not doing so much anymore. Like, and I love that you say it. Almost, I'm glad, because before I talk to you that much, I've seen stuff about your books. I don't have your books. I'm going to buy them, and for sure, no doubt about it. But I love I feel like I kind of do the way you've gone through your growing, even though you've done it for decades, a little bit longer than I have, being out somewhere you can do it. I'm in a place though where I'm stuck with the small grow too. So when I do my experiments, because I'm always experimenting. In fact, my yield is always not maybe as good as it could be, because I'm a teacher, so I'm experimenting, but I only have room for, say, 6 plants. So, you know, I have to do my experiment one grow at a time. So I understand completely what you're saying about being in that situation, you know, but I love the idea too, and I think everybody in the panel is nuts about the fact that, yeah, what I want to bring it about you saying, let's get 20 different experiments. Well, I love growmarijuana.com. Give me one of your experiments, and we'll get our membership to try it out.
Yeah, we should do it. You know, yeah.
One of the things so I happened to listen to the Dude Grows interview, and one of the things that I thought was really awesome, you're similar in the boat to I am. Your original degree was not agriculture or horticulture, which I thought was really, really awesome. Do you want to talk a minute on that, and how, you know, how it is that you've become to be one of the leading experts on that, having maybe not originally started off on that path?
I am not a leading expert. I'm a good reader. But yeah, you know, I mean, what happened was I grew up on a gentleman's farm in New York. My father wanted to be a farmer. My grandfather wanted to be a farmer, and both of them had farms. And then they would, you know, during the week, they would go into New York City and do their daytime jobs and come home and farm. And so I was the indentured servant, one of them on one of the farms. And, you know, and I was a good gardener. I knew how to garden, but I really knew how to garden with Miracle-Gro, because my father and my grandfather, who put this guy into business, Horace Hagedorn, remained good friends with him. And so we were big Miracle-Gro users. And yet at the same time, my father met and became friendly with J.I. Rodale. And I remember once having a dinner, sitting at dinner, and J.I. Rodale sitting there at the dinner table. Holy crow, you know, there's organic gardening. And so,
you're talking about the father of organic gardening, right?
Yeah. So it was very interesting guy, you know, I mean, a real businessman, but anyway, and I was a little kid, but, you know, as I gardened, I then went to college, and I certainly wasn't going to become a farmer. And so I majored in geology, and so I got a little bit of chemistry out of that, I guess. But and then I went to law school, and so I ended up as a lawyer, and I ended up getting shot in Boston. And as I was, you know, breathing through a little hole in my neck, I said, "Geez, I'm going to get the hell away from here." And so I went to Alaska, and when I was in Alaska, I got here in 1972 or 3. There was no live TV. There were 2 newspapers. There was last week's Tonight Show. You know, they fly it up on a videotape or something. There were 2 newspapers that were run by the same company. One of them was an evil Chamber of Commerce company, and the other was a little teeny, you know, really cool liberal paper. And the liberal paper wanted to break apart this agreement, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I ended up writing a garden column for the liberal paper. And that's how I got into this stuff. And so I've been writing a garden column every single week without missing any single week for the past 40, I think it's 43 years now. And in fact, I'm sitting here thinking, oh God, I got to write a garden column, you know, for this weekend. But
Aquaponics, there you go.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it, and I have written about aquaponics before. And when you think about the books, the reason why I think the books work is because when you write a garden column, they're about 750 words long. Now, when you go to these books, you'll look and you'll see there's a black line, and then there's discussion for 750 words, and then there's another black line, and then there's discussion for 750 words. And so they're like little articles, and God knows I've written enough of those. So I don't know much else. I don't know anything about geology. I don't know anything about law. I know very little about gardening, but I know how to write 750 words. You know, that's relatively clear. So that's why the books work, I think. And I always tell people, start with Teaming with Microbes, because that's really that's the seminal. And if you don't like that book, I'll buy it back at 3 times the price. Pretty gutsy. You know, I've been saying that now since 2006, and I've taken back none. Because nobody ever asks. So I'm hoping that you're not homeless and you don't buy 300 of them and then write me. But
he just had to find a place to live in the Bay Area, so he might need to extort somebody for money. So
yeah, I did. I move into my new place in the Bay Area tomorrow. So
there you go. Yeah, there you go. Well, my son lives down there, so I'll have him watch out, make sure you don't raid the.
If he ends up dry for a minute, let me know. I'll help him out.
All right, I will. He's unfortunately he does not partake, but he used to.
Okay.
He used to. It's always sort of a fun thing. But so these books are kind of fun. But people need to understand that nothing's static. Things continually grow and change, and that's why you got to always continue to read and look at Google and do things like these podcasts. I mean, it's just so important. I mean, for example. The other day, I was reading this article about terpenes and how they've discovered that bacteria and these protozoa, they communicate using terpenes. Huh? Wait a minute. Does that mean we've got an opportunity here somehow by fiddling around with these microbes to dink around with the terpene content? It makes you start thinking about some of these things.
You know what's really funny on that note, because I haven't had a chance to read that paper yet, but I'm going to go research it now, is that I've always watered my plants with, when I do bubble hash, I always take the leftover water at the end after I, filtered a second time, and I take it and I pour it on my plants. And I've always noticed my plants that I do that with are always have a higher trichome count every single time I do that. But you explaining that makes it 100% sense now as to what's chemically going on, because it's taking those terpenes and then just breaking them down and converting them back into the terpenes that they're using.
It could be.
It's already got an easy base to build from.
Well, that might be it, but we have to find out whether that's really, really true. I mean, so for example, I read an article that they've discovered, I think it's manganese, I can't remember the other one. 2 of the nutrients that if you get them down in the rhizosphere, and I just read that it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, if you get them into the rhizosphere, they change the terpene content. And they increase the terpene content in certain areas, and so you get a better tasting weed by using. If this is true, and of course it must be. I mean, because it just makes too much sense. We know that you can taste the Miracle-Gro when you use Miracle-Gro. Weed that's grown in Miracle-Gro, you can taste it. So
yeah, for sure.
Sure. So we know that if we put certain things in, and if we get the right nutrients in the right proportion, and it all goes back, it's like, so you go back to your Albrecht, your ratio of nutrients to each other. And then maybe if we think around with those a little bit, we end up with different tastes and stuff. But again, we're not going to get any of this crap from the government. We got to figure this out ourselves.
So you said manganese, and you didn't remember the other. Is the other one a micronutrient also?
Yeah, well, yeah. Don't quote me on what they are, but I'm going to look it up, and when I find it, I'll email it to you guys. But because it's a very recent article, it was in Science News, I think. Although I can't imagine why they would write about.
I have all
molybdenum. Manganese and molybdenum are the 2 that I've been lately hearing a lot about.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was molybdenum.
Okay. Molybdate and manganese. Or molybdenum.
We'll have to look it up. But in any case, we'll Google it out and see. But those kinds of things are out there and ready to go. And you know, and then you start thinking about the microbes in terms of the practices that we do, you know. So we know that inside these individual cells, there are all these enzymes that are creating the proteins that are, you know, doing. So these enzymes are crucial. They are proteins, but they're crucial. And every single cell has tens and hundreds of thousands of these enzymes, and, you know, and they operate best at what temperature? You know, that's the temperature we want to try to grow our weed at. Those are the kinds of things we want to be looking at and looking for. I think the temperature was 76 degrees. I think that's what it was. It was, you know, you get up towards 86 degrees and 90 degrees, the plant begins to shut down. Enzymes don't work the right way, you know. So those are the kinds of things we need to start looking at and sharing and testing, and because we're going to come up with such an unbelievable end product, you know, that it's just going to be the be all and there with all. It's just, it already is in a sense.
When you say temperatures, are you meaning temperatures in the root zone? Are you talking ambient temperatures? Are you talking the leaf temperatures at the active photosynthesis sites? I'm
talking wherever the activity is going, which is pretty much the whole plant at the same temperature. Interesting.
I also wanted to give Charlie a chance to ask you a couple of questions. He actually uses your books as textbooks, and I'm sure he has a couple of questions.
Yeah, I've been familiar with Elaine Ingham's work for quite a while, and so Jeff, when your books came on the market, it was refreshing. It was written in a very simple way to understand what she was trying to convey, and some very long lectures, and so my students really engaged with it. I talked to the publisher just today and let him know I was using those books, and he was very thrilled to hear that. So I just want to commend you.
I hope you stay away from the first edition, first printing.
I will remind myself to do that, okay.
Because there's a mistake in it. I reversed the pH. Oh my God. And then when they revised the book, they went back to the first printing and repeated the mistake again. So that's just my only big caveat. But I'm tickled that you're using it as a textbook. You know, people tell me that they've taken classes and it's been used as a textbook, and you know, I always tell people, geez, anytime you need a guest lecturer, just let me know.
Well, if you can make it to Santa Fe, we'll definitely host you. Like I said, so I've been following Elaine's work for quite a while, and I was working a project up in Pennsylvania just a few years ago, and was pleased to find out Elaine was working there at Rodale still doing some analysis, and my partner started a biofloc aquaculture tank. So it's a heterotrophic based system, and we would pull the sludge off of that tank and incorporate it with some worm castings. And then Elaine was there, and they were starting to analyze that. And what was coming off the fish tanks was just remarkable population counts for microbes that was even shocking to Elaine. So there is something magic there about that fish waste as far as the microbial populations. I do want to say that, just comment on the soil, the organic standards. I think we're all in agreement that we're beyond organic in many ways, but I still see that the fight on the opposite side still bases their whole recommendations on soil, and really what they're calling soil. And soil, to many people on that board, is classified as the top few inches of the Earth's crust, and it must be maintained touching the Earth. So taking soil and putting it in a root zone, in a dual root zone bucket, in many ways that would not be classified as organic under the standards. And I think that the aquaponics and hydroponics should be in the separate categories. And as I presented to the task force, I think that the story for aquaponics really was a stumper for them. It really confused the issue because of how sustainable and organically, microbial based that system is. But then they raised issues, and I think some of the stickling points are things like animal welfare. They need to look at animal welfare and add some regulations to make sure everyone's doing it right. Because we said, aquaponics should brand itself, but just because Ken does it right doesn't mean Joe down the road is doing it right. So other people can give us a bad name as far as aquaponics. And then the other big issue, I think, was the manure rule. And I think there's some misunderstanding that fish effluent is not manure. It doesn't have to go through manure rules because of the cold-blooded nature of that animal. So there's a lot of issues that are going to prohibit, I think, water-based farming from organic standards. I saw that in my crystal ball for quite a while. I was hoping I was wrong, but it looks like we may be headed the wrong direction on that one. But otherwise, Jeff, I just want to just give you my comments again. You're an inspiration. The way you can put technical terminology of microbiology, which really isn't rocket science, but the way you can put it in simple words and translate it to other audiences. Thank you for doing that, and we'll continue to use your book. So keep writing. I guess one of my questions was, what's next? I don't know if you keep in touch with Elaine Ingham. Where do you see this kind of soil food web? You've obviously reached out and touched a lot of people. We know what you're talking about now. 5 years ago, not as many people did. So what do you think is next, and where are we headed?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think the mycorrhizal fungi is next. I think we're going to get a lot more strains that we're going to be able to grow and commercialize. I think we're going to get a lot more specificity to it. I think we're going to start to understand what's going on in the mycosphere, which is the comparable part to the rhizosphere. I mean, you know, we've got, and I think the biggest problem that we're going to begin to face is phosphorus. You know, we're approaching peak phosphorus. You know, people don't talk about that, but the reason why we have so much, why we have artificial nitrogen is because we were running out of nitrogen. And, you know, Sir Joseph Banks challenged the scientific world to figure out a way we were going to live without nitrogen or to get nitrogen. And that's how we ended up, you know, many, many years later. But we are going to run out of phosphorus. And we got 40 years left, they say, something of that sort. You can't buy lawn food with it anymore. That middle number is no longer on any lawn package in the United States of America. That just happened a couple of years ago, you know. So that's going to be a big problem. And I think we're going to have to start figuring out how to deal with that. I mean, you know, we're going to have to start using human wastes, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to have to get much more sustainable. And I think that's where we're headed. We're headed towards scarcity, not necessarily because it's the right thing to do, but because of scarcity. And I think that's going to impact the gardening field, the growing field. You know, we're all going to be impacted by it.
Not to mention that China's been buying the crap out of it. China's been trying to corner the home, buying every nutrient, every kind of mineral and nutrient available to man and stockpiling it in China. They've been doing that for years. That's one of the reasons we're getting in trouble with some of this too. You know, our ag supplies and stuff.
Well, and God only knows what our president, you know, is going to be doing for us all in these areas. But in any case, we don't want to get in politics. You know, we want to stick with the growing stuff. But
sorry, Charlie, I didn't mean to cut you off, buddy.
No, I was just going to say that I think everyone on this panel speaks the same language, Jeff. We all know about the phosphorus crisis, and that's really why a lot of us do what we're doing.
Yeah,
actually, so we have a lot of guests that actually aren't quite as educated as we are. Do you want to speak for that a little bit more and just explain that to people? Because a lot of people aren't aware of that. And well, while everybody on the panel I think is aware, I don't think a lot of our guests or, you know, listeners are.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
In a nutshell, we're just running out. We have used up the available resources. Phosphorus comes from rock through a long process, and it's not readily available when it is available. In soils, it gets locked up in a nanosecond in the clay particles, and in microbes too, for that matter. But it gets locked up in a nanosecond. It's very hard to free up unless you have the right fungal and phosphorus bacteria to break it down. And the resources are very, very scarce, and there aren't that many places in the world that have it. Fortunately, the United States is one of them. I'm trying to think of where else it is, but Morocco. Yeah, that's a great place.
I think a lot of the phosphorus on the planet, there's a lot of the phosphorus on the planet is actually tied up in bones. So we have to
Right.
start looking at livestock waste and recapturing that phosphorus.
Yeah.
That's a great
And
idea.
in poop. And in poop, you know, I mean,
Exactly.
so
Sure.
we're going to have to figure these things out, and we're going to have to figure it out in order to be able to eat, because without phosphorus, we don't eat. That's just period. So I think that's really kind of in the short run. I think we're going to have a little bit of a bumpy road here in the cannabis world. I don't think there's any question Jeff Sessions wants to shut down every cannabis dispensary in the country. You know, he's not only be back in, but I think he's going to find out that he's going to get put in a bottle if he even, you know, when he tries. But I mean, you know, it's just going to be a terrible situation. But they're going to try, you know. I mean, and they're going to.
Yeah, he's been trying since he got there, and he'll keep trying until he gets kicked out or they're done, one or the other. But
well,
you know,
yeah.
I think what was it, twice now they voted down his appeal to them to lift the sanctions from Obamacare. I forget what the act is, but basically it's what allows the DEA, or doesn't allow the DEA, to go after state sanctioned medical program. And so twice now he's put it to vote, and each time it's been voted down, even by a Republican majority panel. So if nothing else, I mean, at least that gives me a little bit of hope that there's still enough people in the majority that will say, hey, maybe we shouldn't just condemn all of these sick kids, you know, or everybody at the same time, or at least thinks about it logically enough to understand what they're trying to do in terms of bring this prohibition in. So that is the silver lining for me. Obviously, the dark cloud is the asshole that is Sessions, and he'll continue to try. And I guess hopefully we'll just keep enough people in there to be able to keep voting it down, because I agree with you. He's not done, and he's going to keep trying. And we'll probably get rocky in the same way that Colorado's gotten rocky, and Washington has gotten rocky, and Oregon has gotten rocky, and California is about to get rocky, and all of those things may be uncomfortable, but hopefully they lead to the lifting of prohibition. So even if I think Sessions stoking the fire the way he is really going to backfire, because he's going to find out that it's going to burn way hotter than he can handle, and he'll probably be the one that has to leave the kitchen. And maybe we'll get actual federal lift of prohibition and open up state lines and do all those things. But who knows?
Sure would be nice.
Yep. Hey, if I could ask one more question, this is Charlie. Just a couple days ago, Steve posted up on his Facebook a product. It was called a microbiometer, and kind of a rapid assay to take a sample of that soil. And I'm not sure if y'all talked about this earlier.
We did. We did. We talked about it, and I'm the one who I think probably was as a result of that's how it got there. I've been using it now for about a month, and it's fascinating. The guy that really sort of is the genesis of it is a guy on the East Coast who he put in the High Line. He put in the landscape in the High Line. He takes care of it. He takes care of the World Trade Center landscaping, Brooklyn Battery Parks, etc. He's very organic, uses lots of compost tea and mycorrhizal fungi, and he's doing the St. Louis Arch. He does all this stuff, and a very, very big, sustainable guy. He's awesome. Makes his own compost tea, grows his own mycorrhizal fungi, and has all sorts of skookum things. And gave a talk, and this microbiologist heard him speak and said, "Hey, this is all about microbial biomass. Good things happen when you know what you're doing and you have good microbial biomass." And that's sort of the bottom line. You and I, we all know what we're doing. We use aerated compost teas. If we're using something that's anaerobic, we know what's in it. We stay away from E. coli that's bad. We understand that fish poop isn't it's not shit. And so we know that when we're adding microbiology into our systems, we're increasing the microbiology in our systems in a positive way. And that makes it possible for us to use this microbiometer and measure that microbiology. Now, if we didn't know what we were doing and we were just throwing poop and stuff in, we could measure the microbiology and it's higher and we'd be excited about it, but it would be the wrong microbiology.
Right.
That's not what we're doing in this situation. We know what we're doing. We're educated. We know how to make tea. We're not going to make bad tea. And so I highly encourage people to try this test. It's really an incredible experience to be able to see differences in soil, in just a couple of, in a week, to see a difference because you've done something to it is, well, as I like to say, I've always looked for something that'll tell me whether products team with microbes. Give me something that I can test products with to tell me whether it's teaming with microbes or capable of teaming with microbes. This is the system that lets you do that. Any other system that does the same thing takes 2 weeks and costs $150. This is $10 and takes 10 minutes. Wow.
And I want to say I went to microbiometer earlier when you said, I think Tommy did too, maybe because it looked like he was reaching for his keyboard. And the starter kit's only $100.
I think it's for like 12. Like for 12, you get 12 tests.
You can 12 tests for $100. You can send if you don't want to do that or you don't think you're capable, which everybody is capable. All you guys out there that are scared to do something new, look at us old guys. We're doing something new every day. Just been talking all night about how we have to evolve, even though we know how to do it. We've become experts at how we have to do it, but things are changing. The way aquaponics is taking off, the way Steve and Ouroboros and Marty and these guys are just showing us that it actually does work after years of being, kind of the redheaded stepchild of growing. It's become a foremost. And I mean, I got tons of money in aquaponics, and I've become a fish dealer, and I'm getting ready to start my own aquaponics here. In fact, Ken, I'd love to have an Ouroboros East, down here in Carolina, man. Perfect kind of climate. We can do one on the East Coast if you want to.
We might be able to make that happen one of these days.
Yeah, man, we got great land down here. A lot of farms that nobody's doing anything with anymore.
There are plenty of possibilities coming up here in the future that might make that a reality.
I had to throw that in there, but anyway.
I bug him about Oregon all the time too, so don't feel bad.
Oh, we don't forget Oregon.
I'm going to be buying that biometer when we get off the show tonight. I'm going to go ahead and buy one. Well, we're talking about doing this. If you can get a kit that'll tell you, where you're at with your microbes, and we're all buying into this hard, might as well get it done. I mean, sooner I get it, sooner I can test, right?
There you go. You can tell us.
Well, you guys got mega bucks compared to me. You guys can.
Oh yeah.
$100. Guinea pig. I love the guinea pig.
Only thing I got going for me is I own 2 acres of dirt. That's the only thing I got going in the swamp. That's the only thing I got going. Is I do own my land and I don't have any mortgage payments. So.
Well, hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
So anyway, but I wanted to throw that in since Jeff brought it up earlier. I went right to the site. It's a really cool site too. That microbiometer.com. It's got right away. There's a picture of a tree, and then it shows you all the root zone and all the things that Jeff was talking about in the root zone and how it, and how it all works down there, and a bunch of other graphs. So all you listeners out there, check that out. I don't normally plug all kinds of stuff, but this is a learning experience with a tester you can get, and everybody's into it now. I mean, beginners are coming in and buying $1,500 LEDs. That never happened before, but the science has gotten crazy. Yeah, see, even you, Jeff is like, no, not me. Not me either, but I do have a few that I've experimented with, but I'm not going to get into LEDs now because that's not what the show's about. But yeah, but they're coming in, they're brand and never grew before, and they're buying $1,500 LEDs. And, like I said, man, I wish I had $5,000 to just throw on a grow when I started. I started with some Rubbermaid bubblers and some 3-part and GH 3-part. And that's how I started, I bought some, some humic acid and fulmic acid and liquid karma and this and that. And of course, the Super Thrive, we all tried Super Thrive. If some people still use it now, nobody on this panel probably does because they're all organic, and you would definitely not be using Super
Thrive. Actually is not non-organic. It is an isolated, it's a PGR, but I don't think it's non-organic. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is.
I always thought it was unfermented. I thought it was soybean.
No, I said it is not organic. It's synthetic.
No. I don't. I think it's non-synthetic. I think it's
Oh,
organic.
you think it is actually organic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually vitamin B. It's made out of it's like soy sauce.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, smell it next time.
Made
Yeah.
out of rice.
It's a PGR, which is a plant growth hormone.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
plant growth regulator. I'm sorry.
Regulator. Okay. See, that'll help a lot of our listeners out there too, because they hear about that still. You don't hear anything near as much about Super Thrive anymore. You know, hardly at all.
There's
He
better
died.
ways to do it. Some of our lactobacillus ferment formulas make Super Thrive look like tap water.
Yeah, but nobody knew about that. It was not very
No,
wide.
that's 100% true.
Yeah. But I'm saying what I'm getting is that you very seldom see a guy go, well, once in every 3 to 6 months, I might see one guy post that he might use Super Thrive, but nobody uses it anymore. You got so many people trying to go organic and doing those things. Now, again, we've been trying to boost the aquaponics, on our forum and getting it going. And I guess that'll really help when when I do my system, when I get my system up, that'll probably do a lot to help out because I'm telling you, the people that are joining, Jeff, you love this. I teach 50 to 65-year-olds mostly. I mean, these are all the doctors and lawyers and retired cops and judges and doctors and everything, just that are now, because of the research being released, from the Library of Congress a few years ago. Now everybody realizes that they could use medical marijuana, which they wouldn't, because they were held in the dark for so long, and they grew up with the stigma, right? More of the stigma. Now they're retired, and we've got so many, as you probably know, and it's not what the show about either, but I've find across the board, not just our farm, but everywhere, that all these people are coming out the woodwork because they're tired of being on Vicodin. They're trying to be on pharmaceuticals, and they're growing. So I love it that we can have a show like this, and I've been able to be part of it, and then have a great author like you come on that people can relate to, because you're definitely very relatable. I can see sitting around, burning one with you all day long. I only vaporize now. I don't smoke anymore. Oh yeah, well see, now that's the politically correct answer too. Yes, because smoking. For all you people out there, smoking is bad in any kind of form. You need to ingest your cannabis or your medical marijuana in either, some kind of concentrate or by vaporizing, which is what I also do.
So one more question for Jeff before we switch gears here is, do you have a kind of a go-to compost tea recipe that you would recommend to people? You're kind of one of the more, consider the gurus on that.
First thing, what I do is I always use Alaska humus because it's available to me. So I say that for two reasons. First of all, it's got very high microbiology. You want to use the very best compost you can get. There's a little bit of a controversy. I don't think you can go wrong with being local with your compost. I mean, it's great to use Alaska humus, and if you can get it, fine. But I am using indigenous area microbes. I just feel better about it. But that's just sort of how I feel about it. I think they have a better operative if you're using microbes from the same area, they're used to the temperature, et cetera, et cetera. So when I make my compost tea, I try to put in very few starts. I think what's happened people put too much gunk in. They make too many they make a complicated brew, and you never know whether you're going to get fungal growing or whether you're going to get the bacteria taking over to the point where they kill off all the fungal. So I might use just a little bit of molasses and a little bit of fish hydrolysase. That's it. I always activate my Alaska humus beforehand. I take it, I put a handful of baby oatmeal in it. I put it in a container. I put it into a nice dark, warm location. I have a furnace room. I wipe the condensate off the top of the container once or twice a day. And after about 3 days, I have this beautiful sponge of fungal hyphae mycelium. That as my starter compost. So that's how I do it. Occasionally, lately, what I've been doing is an extract. It takes 15 minutes. I don't have to lug out my kiss machine, and get it going. It's not noisy. and for 15 minutes, I just squeeze a cheesecloth with my Alaska humus in it in a bucket of water and just put it out. That's what I do.
Nice.
So for those that aren't familiar, what's it? Go ahead.
Sorry, have you ever made any of your teas with your pond, like your koi water? You mentioned you kept some fish in a tank. Have you ever tried making one of your teas with the water from the tank as the base?
Yeah. I don't make teas out of it, but I treat it like I do my extract. I use the water, just put it on my plants. That's my wintertime. That's my wintertime food for my plants. Period.
Cool. So I make a lot of my teas with water from my tank as the base to sort of give it another kickstart as well. So might be a fun experiment for you.
Yeah, I'd like to see what that looks like. And how do you end up? Do you end up with a higher bacterial than fungal ratio?
I think so. So I feel like the sponge forms differently on the top. Like the structure seems like it's thinner. It doesn't quite. I don't know. I guess I can't really explain it. It's not quite as texturized. It's thinner.
While you're making the tea, you mean? When you say, what do you mean by sponge? You mean when you're making the tea?
So after I aerate it and make the tea. So for instance, if it's gone through like after I've gone through and aerated it, so I've already aerated it for usually about 24 hours, and then I like to let it sit before I feed it, and it'll form like a pellicule on top, and to me it seems like it forms faster and slightly different than it does when I don't do that. And it does the same thing in my ferments, because I'll do like a horsetail fern ferment, and the same thing happens in there, where in that it's more pronounced because I let it ferment for a long period of time, so you can see the growth pattern is different. So I was just wondering if you
yeah, I don't know what it would be, but I mean, I think it's worth testing. It's certainly worth getting a microscope out, and certainly worth maybe sending a sample into Soil Food Web Lab and getting it tested.
Yeah, that's ultimately what I need to do, because I mean, I've looked at it under my microscope here, but I only know a certain amount. I don't not a microbiologist by any means. So, but I think it would be definitely interesting. That's really the next step to take to do that. But that's why I asked if you ever done it as the base, because I started using it, and I felt like my ferments go faster, and I feel like, and obviously I don't know because I don't do like a control. I did with my ferments, actually. I did one strawberry bed and one cucumber bed with ferments and one of them without, and the fruit production in terms of the numbers of fruits and the size of the fruit and all of it was just way better with the lab ferments on the other side. And so that's really the only one that I can really do. I wasn't able to do cannabis outdoors this year thanks to regulations, but so that I feel like is really sort of the only control group that I have. But in terms of the action of the tea feels different when I use tank water, and I feel like it's more effective or grows faster. But I really need to do a control group in the same way I did the lab ferments and see if it makes a difference in fruit production, because ultimately, I feel like that's what is going to be. Well, I guess in veg maybe there might be could be a value in veg or not, but usually the stuff that I'm researching for cannabis, we're looking for bigger and better fruit, right? Better harvests.
Well, and of course that's always a good question. What are we looking for? I mean, at what point are we there? it's
right,
a tough.
Sure.
On that one, on that note, actually Charlie and Ken are both huge proponents of remineralization tanks and remineralizing fish waste, where they take fish waste, they put it in basically a compost tea brewer, for lack of a better explanation, with a high amount of oxygen, and it brews and brews and brews. Is that something that you've worked with before, or does either you or Ken or Charlie want to talk on that?
Well, I've never done it, but it certainly makes sense. I mean, what you're doing is you're increasing the count. They're breeding. And so you're increasing the microbial biomass exponentially every hour. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's up as long as you're able to feed them and keep the oxygen content high enough.
Yeah, I'm doing that on a regular right now. So I take the sludge off the bottom of a settling cone and I aerate it. I don't actually add extra feed to it. I just spend time aerating it. Many years ago, we did a paper and we put it out as a preliminary evaluation of organic fish waste. And we were seeing things like how long these nutrients took to dissolve. And phosphorus was one, like you said, Jeff, it's always locked up quickly. So it took about 30 days of aeration before the full phosphorus was released from the solids. And that was the last mineral to release. So yeah, we do that on a regular, and then we let that tank settle, take that clear supernatant, which is all dissolved nutrients and microbes, and I either put that back in systems or I've run separate hydroponic systems with that as my sole nutrient source and got pretty much commercial yield.
But you run it for 30 days? Wow.
Yeah, that paper is available. Steve can get that to you also.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Yeah, that's fascinating.
We looked at each nutrient and how long it took for them to dissolve in solution.
Yeah, Charlie's actually written. How many white papers have you worked on now? A couple of
I don't know.
Some ridiculous number.
Yeah, a few.
Neat. Love it.
A few, closer to like 1,000 or a couple, at least 500.
Oh, you've been in the rabbit hole too.
Yeah, so but I really enjoy it. I look at with my systems now. I'm feeding the fish. I'm getting the protein. The liquid nutrients they release are fed to hydroponic plants. Then I take the solid waste, mineralize it further. I grow more plants off of that. And now we're starting to work with a lot of taking our roots and our shoots and our stems that we don't harvest or use and push that through a worm compost process, and then take the worm castings and create a tea and grow more plants where the original input was basically fish food.
Sure.
So getting as much as we can.
Of course, the worms just concentrate that stuff out like no one's business. God. Yeah, so you guys, you're using everything you possibly can except for biodynamic. There's no goat involved here. We don't have a goat.
Right. I occasionally feed a dead fish to my chickens. So.
There you go.
Just gotta figure out how to grow some gills on a goat after we can do that.
Yeah, Charlie, right. You're talking about cannabis waste that you're feeding to your worms. Is that what you're saying? Cannabis waste?
No, any kind of waste. So I'm growing vegetables. So we're at Santa Fe Community College, and it is a legal state here for medicinal. But at the college, I'm not allowed to necessarily teach Cannabis 101 yet until the feds do something different.
So you were talking about regular waste, roots, and all that. Anything you'd have from a plant that you harvest, you're putting that to the worms, and that's what they're churning.
Yeah, it's like in our industry in aquaculture, we often talk about a feed conversion ratio, right? How much I feed a fish to how much meat I gain. So I'll look at that 1.4 pounds of fish food that I throw in, and I can grow a pound of fish, and I can grow the hydroponic vegetables, and then I can keep the system going. So my food conversion ratio really defies alchemy. It's I'm getting more food than I put in the system.
I love it. I love it. That sounds great.
And I'd say Rodale was one of my inspirations early on in my career as well.
Great segue. I want to show you. I was digging for this earlier. You see this right here? That's Rodale's book. That's one of my books. As you can see, it's not in the best of shape. You know.
No, it's well used. That's
well. This is a compost book, y'all. Just on compost.
That's right. Damn.
You know, but I'll bet you it doesn't use the word microbe in it once. Does it say bacteria? Does it say fungi?
Do you hear that, Roger? Roger, does it even mention microbiology in that book?
Well, I love it, Jeff, because Jeff even brought up earlier, he brought up one of my favorite things when people are arguing organic or chemical or synthetic, however you want to put it. I say, Rodale said, and Jeff said it earlier in his own way, a leaf cannot tell the difference of nitrogen from an organic source or from a fertilizer bag. And that's why that's why I loved him. So father of organic, organics said that. So it's just funny, and Jeff hit on it earlier, but yeah, you guys are great, man. What a great panel tonight.
We had a question from chat. It says, I'd like to hear Jeff's opinion on SSTs.
SSTs. What are SSTs?
I don't know. Sprouted seed tea.
Oh, seed sprout tea.
Yeah, so he's talking about, sprouting a bunch of seeds of like barley or corn or something like that. So essentially you take a lot of them, and I believe the concept is to get the enzymes that are released when the seeds originally sprout, and then you basically pour them into a blender and blend them up into mush, and you can either bubble them into tea or just feed them top dress and water them in.
I don't know.
Wow.
Now I'm going to have to go look that up too.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I wonder how it works. I mean, I go over so that it goes in that way.
Well, it's something to do with hormones, maybe? Was something to do with the hormones of the new plant?
Enzymes. Makes sense.
Enzymes.
Enzymes makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're after the, essentially the enzymes that are, that would, are there to both trigger the reaction that the plant needs to protect itself in those early stages of growth, and also be able to uptake nutrients. So that's kind of the basis of what I read about it, and I've done a couple of them. Last year we did barley, and I believe it was sweet corn, if I remember right. It's pretty easy to do. It doesn't even, it doesn't take that long. If you have a blender and some water and some seeds, and the seeds are cheap. Oh, alfalfa, that's another one that's popular to do as well. And you can buy a lot of them, like in bulk if you want to do this consistently and have it do something you want to do. So it's cheap to do. It doesn't take very long, and it's readily available. So check it out.
One of the guys from go ahead, sure, Jeff.
I was going to say, I wonder why that works. I mean, so for example, those plants that you mentioned are very heavy mycorrhizal associators. The plant sends out the signal to attract the mycorrhizal fungi. I wonder whether those little seedlings have roots that are putting out that signal, putting it out in there. Are they called? I don't know. It's very interesting. These things work. What I'd like to know is why. What's going on? And of course, who's got the equipment to be able to figure that out? But fascinating stuff.
We actually had a guy from chat says, "What's the next book should be teeming with enzymes."
Well, I don't know. Each individual plant has what do I always say? 35 trillion cells. Each cell has 10,000 different kinds of enzymes. Each one, they have 1,000 enzymes of minimum. So you've got 10,000 different kinds of enzymes, 1,000 of each one of those in each individual cell. Holy crow. That's a lot of enzymes. Enzymes run the world, no question about it.
Charlie suggested teaming with hormones.
Yeah, I probably sell a lot of those to teenagers.
Yeah, I've got a 10-year-old. They're raging.
And Roger, teenagers and Roger.
Time to do a disclaimer, for everybody that has a complaint about anything that you don't believe that, that's incorrect politically or really bothers you. No, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, be sure to write apmeds@gmail.com.
You guys are terrible. Terrible.
We pick on Marty.
Yeah, pick on Marty. I do. So Charlie has to get going here. Charlie, do you want to go ahead and make the announcement since we got most of the people here?
Yeah.
We have to run soon.
I hope it's a permanent announcement that there's a few people in this panel, and we're trying to put together a larger project, maybe the largest project in the U.S. as far as aquaponic production, and we're looking to link it with cannabis production. So we've got some goals to set a business in California as the new regs come into place in 2018. Steve's is really spearing some of the planning process of the whole turnkey system from very vertically integrated. So the whole grow process, the manufacturing process, distribution. And we've got Tommy on the panel here. We have some very unique products as far as cannabis, unique extraction methods, unique products that we can ingest. That'll keep us on the radar. But really, we're getting into this because of the green production of aquaponics. We're looking to be a paradigm shift in the way cannabis is grown and show other people. So education will be a big part of it. That's just kind of the basis of where we're headed. If anybody wants further information, link up with Steve. and he can put you in the right direction as far as getting involved in our projects. You guys, you're welcome to speak individually if you want to talk a little bit more about those processes. But it's pretty fascinating at the time. I think the timing is right, the right place, the right time, the right team, and everyone's in it for the right reason. Not so much greed, but to help the industry, to make sure we have a good mark on the industry, sustainability, quality medicine. So we're calling the company Purity Medicinals because it's all about quality over quantity. So, you know, I can't express more to see the team we've got. So Tommy's on the panel here, if the listening audience can see. Steve's there. Ken Armstrong and Ouroboros will be part of this project. And we have some Canadian partners as well. So we're looking to help humanity in the large region.
That is so awesome. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, y'all keep an ear.
We got Marty.
Yep.
We got Charlie. Charlie is one of the head guys helming up the company. We got Ken there with the company. We got Marty on the Oregon division. We got Tommy J on the labs. We got I've been kind of helping organize all the different parts, and depending on, I don't know, whatever part you want, and I couldn't be happier to be part of this. And this is kind of the secret project I've been kind of hinting at the last couple of months, and wasn't able to talk about. I finally got a clearance to talk to it, and kind of grabbed everybody real quick and got them on the show. So I wanted to have them on for the announcement, and just kind of have Charlie make the announcement for us. I thought you couldn't really pick a better team of people.
Yeah, I think so too. Cool.
Congratulations, guys. That is so awesome.
Yeah, you guys keep in touch, because we're going to tap into all of you guys for help.
Yep. And if you guys are interested in that, definitely check out puritymedicinals.com if you're interested. We're we got big things to come and big announcements to come that we can't quite talk about yet, but we got a lot of really cool products, some of which we've hinted at, and some of the ones we haven't. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have cannabis, medicinal herbs, and vegetable production all under one company, all using aquaponics as the base of production, and across multiple countries all at once. So it's going to be something that the industry hasn't really seen before.
Tommy, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, just really excited as somebody who kind of works with the stainless steel and the glass, to be able to process, whether it's out of the cannabis industry, which we're all interested in, it's changed my life, but all the other medicinals that are available, and then just the overall passion that I hear on this panel for changing the way agriculture is done, especially if we're sourcing medicine, whether it's from cannabis or other areas. I'm really excited, who's somebody who's stuck in a lab shaking beakers, to be able to work with a source material that has had the kind of attention paid to it by people like Jeff here and whatever. It's just I think it's an astounding opportunity, and I'm just really, really glad to be part of that.
Yeah, I'll also mention that a few of us on this panel will be at the Aquaponic Association meeting up in Portland. So we look forward to getting together and talking. But if anybody's in the listening audience and wants more information, head up to Portland the first weekend of November and join us. Steve, I think you're going to give a talk on aquaponic cannabis finally at that conference.
Yep, I'm doing a talk there on aquaponic cannabis. I know Ken's doing a talk on his farm. We'll also be up in Oregon here next weekend for part of the Dude Grows, the Northwest Dude Grows Cup. We'll also be sponsoring Northwest Dude Grows Cup, which is the big meeting up in Oregon. I know there's going to be a lot of awesome people there, far more than people realize. I'll leave it at that. And being part of one of the organizers, there's going to be some really cool guests there that I'm not allowed to talk about. And we'll be up there twice in the next month. If you guys are interested and can't make it this weekend, definitely come up for the Aquaponic Association meeting. I'll be giving a talk on that, and Ken is giving a talk. Are you giving a talk, Charlie? I forget.
Yeah, I'm doing applied aquaponics here at the college, so explaining all the systems that we have in place.
Awesome. Yeah, do you want to talk a minute on what you've been doing down there at the college before we? Let you go.
You know, I'm mainly in the process of building a 12,000 square foot greenhouse.
Wow.
It's tied into a microgrid. You know, there's a lot of schools have quarter-acre greenhouses, but we're an island amongst ourselves, so we're not tied into the grid. So a lot of alternative or renewable energy sources fueling that greenhouse. I'm most likely I'll have a bay of traditional hydroponics, a bay of one large aquaponic system, probably a bay of a lot of aquaculture, including algae culture, and then we'll have some space available for businesses. I also do a what we call the farm pod. The website is farmnapod.com, a shipping container downstairs that's a fish farm, and it's pumped upstairs to zip grow towers. So I'm getting my experience with vertical towers, and sometimes I go find out what a pain in the ass they can be versus deep water culture. I also run a deep water culture that's maybe about a 1/16 of the UVI size. We do a lot of the mineralization of the fish waste there, and I do a slew of hydroponics, traditional hydroponics, NFTs and Dutch buckets. I also partnered with a company recently you guys can all check out online. They're called the Aqua Grove. I think their website says Aqua Grove, the new aquaponics. It's just a small scale system, standalone aquaponic system. So I'll be explaining that at the conference, and you guys can check that out online as well. So we're very busy.
That automated system?
It's not automated. It's just a modular system. Again, Aqua Grove, and it's got a lighting system. It's for indoor application. The next protocols or prototypes will have a solar panel installed for outdoor production, and also a spirulina bed in a closed loop feeding the fish the algae. So they've got plans to expand the technology. We just get to test it and push the limits, really.
I think I've been to their website before. They're a little bit focused on like the urban market, right, where they can put
absolutely
containers in.
Oh, not bad. It actually looks like a viable little home herb system. You could grow herbs. And
they're out of Michigan too, so that's a legal state, medical. So they would like to see patients be able to use something simple like that to grow their meds.
In vertical towers?
Yeah, it's a little.
Aqua Grove's at DWC up top.
Oh, right, up top. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
Yep. It's a unique design. It's a small system, but it's going to have a lot of applications in schools and education and homes as well.
And grow shops.
And grow shops, exactly, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I hope to see some of you guys there, and I do need to step out. I'm still dealing with a tiny home stuck in the mud.
Well, good luck.
Well, I figured also I'd let you talk for just 2 seconds on Pedro and what's going on in Puerto Rico.
Okay, sure.
If anyone can help them at all.
Yeah, so the reason I'm bringing a tiny home to my property here in Santa Fe is many of us have a mutual friend, Pedro Casas, down in Puerto Rico. The farm is Agroponicos, an aquaponic farm, and they just got leveled by the Category 5 hurricane. It's a humanitarian crisis right now. Dysentery setting in. There's not a lot of drinking water, so their family's coming up to live with me. So I'm taking in Pedro. We're going to have him do some work with us at Purity Medicinals. I think he's got some side work with Murray Hallam. So our buddy Pedro is a quality guy with a lot of experience, graphic design as well. So if anybody has any opportunities for Pedro, reach out to Steve or myself, and we'll pass that along. At the same time, we're taking another evacuee family from St. Croix, which also got devastated. So I'm about to have 6 people in my small home. I keep reminding my wife that it may be an inconvenience, but we're going to have a Puerto Rican cook and an African cook coming to live with us.
Well, hey, you gotta take what you can get, right?
Right? You could do a lot worse for cuisine, man.
You know,
No, but
Variety is the spice of life.
If there's one thing I miss from
I got my Puerto Rican right here.
yes, mama.
There's my Puerto Rican right there.
There's one thing I miss about living in Jamaica. It's the patois cooking.
Yeah, yep. You know, I'll mention it here now. I guess it was about 3 or 4 months ago. There was a job announcement circulating the web about a aquaponic consultant to take a 3-year position in Jamaica. I think it's open knowledge now that my buddy Alan Patillo from Iowa State accepted that position, and it looks like he's going to relocate to anywhere from 3 to 4 years to Jamaica to keep the movement of aquaponics flourishing down there on the island.
Wow.
So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Awesome. If he needs anything, tell him to hit me up.
Yeah, well, for sure. I've got a lot of experience too, so I think we're going to link him up, and he's going to do great things down there. Cool. Thanks for
On
the
a serious
opportunity,
note,
Steve.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be able to support them.
Yeah, go ahead.
On a serious note, you doing that, man, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
Taking those people in, and that's just,
Yeah, you know,
I have
he's
no
at,
words for it. That's so cool. I'm just,
yeah, thank you.
that's awesome.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you.
And then if you guys can follow up, if I need something, I'll put a shout out to our small circle of friends. So, but we'll do what we can do. My main thing is they all have kids, so we're getting the kids in schools, and we're trying to find work for the adults. So you know, throw any opportunities my way. Pedro is a great guy and can help any business in this field. All right.
Well,
Bless you for
Absolutely.
doing so.
how much I appreciate that. I don't know you, but thank you so much. Puerto Rico needs all the help they can get, and even just a little bit makes a big difference. So thank you very much.
And what's your first name again? I didn't catch it.
Bernadette.
Okay, Bridget. You're gonna meet Pedro one of these days, okay?
Oh, great. And maybe we'll get together and make a big old pile of Puerto Rican food, and everybody
You got it.
They have to have it.
My sweetheart was born on the island.
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
No, I'm a New Yorican. I'm a Puerto Rican born in New York.
Okay.
Yep, okay, I got you.
Half swam over.
All right, look forward to seeing y'all again. Thanks again, Steve. And Jeff, thanks for your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure
All right, I
indeed. Thank you, guys.
Santa Fe is open to you, Jeff. I know you travel around, so make a stop through Santa Fe and we'll host you like a king, okay?
Sounds good. Love it.
All right, bye.
Charlie, thanks for all the great info and great to meet you tonight.
You too, Roger. Appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, man,
thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Charlie.
All right, everyone.
Thank you, Charlie.
One love.
Thanks, guys.
Sorry about
Well,
that.
I should have picked the right
didn't mean to
episode to
interrupt,
come back on, huh? Lots of
Cool
great
as
guests
fuck.
tonight.
Oh, looks like we lost Jeff.
Yeah,
We
it
lost
looks like
all of a
Jeff.
sudden.
No, he thought it was over and went ahead and left, I believe.
Oh, well, okay.
Oh, Dad,
That was cool.
That
All
was
right.
really cool.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna apologize to Jeff for interrupting him. I didn't mean to interrupt his session, but Charlie had to run, and we had Charlie on specifically to make that announcement. So
That's cool.
yeah, that's why we had Jeff or I'm sorry, that's why we had Ken and Charlie on tonight. We've been kind of all working for months behind the scenes and haven't been able to talk about this, and we were all super excited. I know. Actually, Ken, do you want to get a chance to? You didn't really get a chance to talk on your feelings on purity medicinals.
He gets his cat's ass out of the way.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. You
Yeah, I
gotta
was
get
going to
that
say,
out
he's
of the
been beating on something. He's been back there having a ball. beating on
Hey,
something.
it's the best piece of ass I've seen all day. I haven't seen this yet.
way. Go.
We just got it.
Guess who's not getting that good Puerto Rican cooking tonight?
No. Puerto Rican anything.
Chinese takeout for him.
Too funny. No, I'm super excited. I know we've been working with Steve behind the scenes. The opportunity presented itself earlier this year to operate to get access to licenses in the local community where we're at. The city council and the mayor has been super excited about what we're doing and the sustainability about aquaponics, and we've really created an innovative way of doing agriculture in the local area, and they wanted to bring that methodology into the cannabis industry as well. So that was wonderful. I've never grown myself except for in high school a couple times, and we were crawling around on the roof of my parents' house and trying to grow something up there that didn't really work very well. And you know, having developed the relationship with Steve and doing the classes that we'd started doing at our farm, and thought it was a natural fit, and we got talking and thought that was a great idea and expanded out to other people in our network, and eventually we ended up with this wonderful, amazing group of people. For me, I'm super excited because, you know, the cannabis is really excited, and some of the things we're coming out with are absolutely spectacular. But my passion has always been food. and with Jessica too, as my partner, we've always been passionate about food and bringing aquaponics to the mainstream. So we're excited in that this is going to provide a lot of opportunity. This is not just going to be about cannabis and cannabis production, but there's also going to be a lot of food production involved with it as well. So it's a co-marketing type thing or a co-thing to develop high quality purity food to go along with purity medicine. And that's what I'm super excited about. And being able to work with Charlie and his experience and his knowledge in this industry is absolutely spectacular. We've developed with Tommy and our other Canadian partners as well. We've developed an amazing group of people, and we're doing the right thing for the right reason. And we're gonna, it could be paradigm shifting. We could literally change the world just by doing what's the right thing, and it's super exciting. The opportunities are just so open right now, and we're super excited to be working with such a great team of people. And I'm so grateful to Steve and to Tommy and to Charlie, and to all those that have been involved in this project, because it's really with Jessica, who's been helping me along with Ouroboros. I mean, I couldn't have done it without her for sure. There's really, it's exciting times, and what we've been doing for the right reason is really being rewarded. And so the great things and more announcements to come about a variety of different types of products that we'll be bringing into the marketplace, and is super excited to be able to share what we're doing finally in the public sphere with all of you. So thank you for the opportunity.
Congrats.
That's awesome.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for being part of the team.
Yeah.
Tommy, do you want to talk a little bit on some of the stuff? Talk a little bit about powder, and I guess everything else is currently under wraps. You could touch a little bit on the secret extract method, but maybe not any details. But you can talk about the product and the purity level of it, and then the powder.
Sure. I've been lucky enough to share with the team some of the resources that we've been putting together. We're going after extracting in a imagine a high-tech R2D2 that's also a hippie. Okay, so it's high-tech extracting, but with a hippie mentality. So we're using inert molecules that are not going to hurt anything. In fact, you can breathe them in at 40% concentration in the air. So without getting off into too much crazy nerd stuff, we're really looking at honoring this plant among a stable of other plants, really looking at incorporating the different cannabis profiles in with some other things we know from other medicinals that can be grown, and everything coming out of this just, I would call a super high consciousness or super high sustainable, I think they're both interchangeable terms, kind of farming method that will provide raw materials for extracting that have not had to deal with the pesticides in the crop, because they're being brought to market by people that understand what's going on behind the corporate spreadsheet. Everything's being done clear and pure, and that's like the entire concept of the company. One of the biggest things that the company is spending money on is actually testing equipment. The company's looking at spending as much money on testing equipment as they are spending on extraction equipment. And I have to tell you, from somebody who shakes some beakers in a laboratory, when have you heard of that?
Nowhere.
Like investors sitting looking at stuff. When have you heard of a company that completely says, no, it's going to be right, or heck with it? And I just think it's an exciting opportunity to have a base of science. I know Steve's really into it, Ken's into it, where papers can be drawn. You can go out into the field and pull a plant off and run it through the testing equipment in the lab, and the understanding that you're growing stuff, whether it's food or medicine, and I think they're interchangeable. There's this whole concept. I I can't even begin to express how grateful I am to be able to put some of that equipment together and work on it. I'm thrilled, and I get to do it with my sons.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's been the secret project that I've been talking about. Again, if you're interested, check it out. It's Purity Medicinals is the company. We'll be publicly trading before too long. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'll say that. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say that one. Yeah, we'll be publicly trading before you know it, and yeah, we'll.
Did you come up with a name for the powder?
Moon Dust, I think, is the name we're gonna go with.
I came up with a name.
Actually, yeah. Let Tommy. Do you want to touch on that and what you've been working on?
I came up
because it's very unique, and
okay.
Don't talk about the process, but you can talk about the product.
Things on that. I'll hit 2 things on that powder. One is I've already had a discussion with Steve, and I've gotten the green light on it. I would like to hijack the panel here, okay? And
sure.
I need to get kefir out to the panel. I'm finally not traveling a little bit. I need to follow up and get the kefir out to the panel, and we want to get a little bit of the powder out to the panel. But here's the rules. There are rules. Hey, ain't that a bitch? That's life. Physics. Deal with it. The rules are we're going to send you a sealed package, and on the show, open the sealed package. We'll play a song. You pop a little in your mouth, and we're going to have like the Timothy Leary experience. You know, all that kind of good stuff, you know.
I'll bring my...
Because the stuff I'm going to say is going to sound like complete bullshit, but we are willing to put the powder in your mouth to let you know you're actually not kidding. What we've figured out how to do is how to take the molecules that we're most interested in from the cannabis plant, some of the terpenes in particular, are also the CBD and the THC, wrap it in a way that the cells in your body just say, just give me that, okay? And that's an exciting thing because it just so happens that the molecules that we're interested in, or resins, are really hard to get in your body. So we kind of got that handled. I'm not bullshitting, dudes. I'm sharing honest and with respect, and that's why we're willing to get some powder out there and let you know we're not kidding.
You guys might be Taco Bell in the food.
Added some flavoring to it that actually helps your body beyond that, beyond making the molecule recognizable to your body. We've managed through some different flavorings to help the body uptake it even more. And honestly, I'm talking to somebody who needs this medicine to deal with 7 discs in my spine that are missing. I'm dealing with no opiates. I completely deal with the things of related from cannabis or kratom, and it completely handles me without any opiates. I'm coming here from respect. I'm saying this from respect. We got something figured out here that's actually pretty freaking bitchin'.
That's
I'll
awesome.
tell you.
Powder, it's sublingual, and the same technology. Here's the biggest thing, guys and gals. The same technology. If you have a kid that's seizing, all right, you can just pop a bag of the CBD stuff because it's the exact same molecule group. It works exactly the same. You will be able to stop that within a minute because we have made it so bioavailable and triggering the body to want it even more. I've been hearing the word from other people that have tried it, calling it game-changing, and honestly, I'm actually starting to believe it.
I believe it already. I'm glad I finally get to talk after being privy to this for a little while. At least this part of the show. I mean, of the new company, knowing a little bit about the powder for a while. Yeah, finally. Yeah, man. It's like, well, so I can freely talk about the powder now, from what I know, right? And it was
I don't know about freely,
guys.
Yeah, you're allowed. You don't know anything that you're not supposed to talk about, so you're fine.
Right. Okay. Right. So here's what it was for all you guys out there. It's like, remember when we were kids and we went and bought pixie sticks? That's what this shit's gonna be like. You're gonna have a little thing. You would open it up and dump it in your mouth like pixie sticks, like the red, yellow, green, and purple. Oh man, yeah. It's like game changer. I'm telling you. I was trying to say it earlier, but you know, Tommy's kind of like me. Once we get started, you better wait for us to finish.
I love you, Rob.
I would say the biggest difference, the biggest game changer about this product is the fact that, unlike most other edibles, what's the biggest issue with edibles? You take it, half an hour later, you haven't felt anything. An hour later, you haven't felt anything. It takes sometimes up to 2 hours, depending on the person, for it to hit you. Well, that's a big problem. You'll end up taking too much, right? Not with our product. Within 30 seconds to 90 seconds, it's going to start. You're going to feel something. And then within about 5 to 10 minutes, after about 10 to 15 minutes, I would say you're about peaked out, and you're not going to be any more intoxicated than you're going to be. So if you want to take more after 15 minutes, take more. You'll go past where you're at right now. But if you don't want to be any farther, you're good. You're at wherever you're at after about 10 to 15 minutes. And that's the biggest.
We're microdosing.
Yep. And this whole package. So let me give you an example. This whole thing right here, this is 2 grams in a little baggie. This is 20 milligrams, okay? And I write, 20 milligrams THC on the bag, so when I give out the samples, people know what it is. That's all there is to it. I mean, 20 milligrams hits like 80 to 100 milligrams. And I'm not joking at all when I say that, because it goes into your bloodstream so much faster. It's totally different, and it hits you just like it's the first time you ever got high. It's a much more euphoric, more almost ecstasy-like high. Just like the first time you got high. Every single time it totally changes how you uptake it and changes how it enters your bloodstream. So it feels different every time you do it. Ken, do you want to talk on it a little bit? Not to single you out specifically, but I know you had very strong feelings on the product.
Oh yeah, definitely. I had the opportunity last weekend to try it for the first time, and I'd heard Steven and Tommy talk about it, and it's fantastic. I'm usually a hardhead. It usually takes me a little while to get something. I took one of these packets, and it felt like 80 to 100. So for me, like, that's almost microdosing. I need like 120 milligrams to feel anything, and this 20 milligram packet, I'm like, okay, it was more of a threshold type of thing. I'm like, okay, I'm not quite where. After 10 or 15 minutes, I was there. Like, this isn't quite where I want to be. I took another packet. I was in 15 minutes later, I was just where I want to be, around, I'd say probably 120 to 140 milligrams if I was to do a normal sort of edible from the store that I was getting. So it was super easy to dose. Within 30 minutes, I was exactly where I wanted to be with that level of precision. And you just see, being able to go down, you could measure by the milligram. You could figure out exactly what type of effect you're looking for, with the medicinal values as well. And, just that precision ability to really target exactly where you need to be to alleviate that, whether it's alleviating some sort of issue you have, or if you're looking for the psychoactive effects to get you to that space where you're looking to get. We were sitting at a bar afterwards, sitting there and trying it for the first time, and it just all became totally clear to me. It was really spectacular. This is absolutely an amazing, potentially game-changing type of product, and super excited to be working with some mad scientists with Steve and Tommy to really have dialed this thing in. It's really it's a game changer. It's really a spectacular product.
Wow. It's funny you mentioned that Tommy had this product. I think a little over a year ago. You showed it to me initially, right? It was about a year ago.
Yeah.
Last August, I think it was.
Can I do a little demonstration?
Sure.
Okay. So this is, can the camera see it? It's a little bag. I've just opened it up. It's a 2 gram bag. And so in there is 20 milligrams. And so I just kind of opened it up, and you just flick a couple times with your fingers, and it goes in your face. Look at what? Now, I'll be honest, I put it on top of my tongue because it's really pretty serious. If you put it under your tongue, I'm a lightweight. If you put it under your tongue, it's going to hit you.
If you want to go to sleep, put it under your tongue.
Honestly, it's too much for me. I'm a lightweight. Steve will tell you this. He can do like a crazy amount of stuff. I do one puff. I'm like, where's my ass? Okay.
Yep.
You know. So I do it on top of my tongue. But if you really want to talk to God, put it under your tongue, you know. And so like what I just did, we'll put those molecules from my mouth, I'm not kidding, I'm absolutely not kidding, right into my head within 1 minute. Now, I'm somebody who's missing 7 discs in my spine. When I hurt, I want to throw up in the parking lot. So I try to stay away from hurt really long. One of the things I like about this, unlike an acetaminophen or anything else like that, I can put this in my face, and within 1 minute, I know relief is coming. Whether it's CBD, THC, or whatever combination I have of it. And I would suggest if you're doing the THC version, honest to God, please don't do more than 2 packets.
And don't drive.
My son did 4, and he said, okay, Dad, I did it. I'm not doing it again.
Yep,
You know,
I agree.
he wants to know, and he knows not to go back there. So I honestly suggest, really, really, not kidding, no more than 2 packets, you know, no more than 2 2-gram packets. And the thing is,
Take that to heart, though. This is a mad scientist telling you not to take more than 2 packets.
You should say
you
take
know
it.
you know how you guys are bringing the insane knowledge of aquaponics to the world? We're trying to say just the raw numbers of THC and CBD, those are not as important as how many of those molecules are you actually getting in your body. Just like you guys know and you breathe, okay, I'm taking this worm and I'm doing this with it, it's feeding it back into the system, and you really understand what's going on there. I think we've been taking more molecules of THC and CBD than we actually need.
Yep, we've been pooping too much of it out rather than uptaking it.
And actually use them, we can greatly reduce the amount of the molecules, and what that means to your body is you will get to use those molecules for many years into the future rather than overwhelming your body's system with too much nutrient of THC or CBD. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm
it's just like a hydroponic versus aquaponic system. If you make it bioavailable, you uptake more versus not bioavailable. It's exactly the same. Go ahead, Roger. I'm sorry.
It's great that it's great that it's available to you so fast, so you can judge it. You know, and what I also like about it, and what you know wasn't really discussed, but it's definitely out there for anybody that could perceive it, is that Tommy brings up whether it's THC or CBD. See, that's the thing about this too. These medibles, the moon dust can be manipulated to be almost all CBD or completely CBD, even though we believe pretty much that you need some THC in there to make everything really.
So that's true with everything.
We actually
true with everything except for the
just figured that out.
Yeah, we've actually figured out the problem with the THC in this. Yeah, we figured out a loophole, and that whole THC required for CBD thing, and we can actually make you uptake the CBD in a way that does not require the THC the way it normally would. Good. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tommy. Go ahead.
Oh, so but I was finished. The amount of THC or the CBD in any, so you can have different levels in packages. Instead of, you can have a high THC content package of moon dust, you can have a high CBD content without as much THC. You can balance it. You can have a balanced one. So it's wild. That's where it's a game changer too. It's not one thing.
And we will
a whole spectrum.
We will be able to go strain specific. So if you guys that are on this panel that I got mad respect for, you guys come up with some girl that is just sick for such and such a condition, we can literally take that girl and put it in a powder form that we know we're getting the entire terpene profile in the end consumer that the plant made without ever having to introduce the high temperatures of burning off the terpenes, because you're changing those molecule groups. When you put those molecule groups in your body at low temperatures, you get the full medicinal effects. So when you guys who can grow like badasses come up with a girl that serves such and such a patient, we'll be able to capture that entire profile as the plant that you grow, put it in a powder that is the safest, longest acting pathway through the body. I mean, it'll just take what you guys do and amplify what you do by multiple times. And, you know, it's just chemistry at that point, right?
If you want to go ahead and straight do out blueberry, you can say, well, here's the blueberry medicine. This is blueberry. You know, you want to go, you know, go beyond that. You go, here's AK-47, here's blueberry, here's piscaberry. You know,
and for those of you who are interested, definitely check out puritymedicinals.com if you want to find out more information. Tommy, do you want to mention a little bit? You and I were actually talking quite a bit recently, personally, between the two of us about there was a study done recently on terpenes. Do you want to talk a little about that? I actually sent you a much better written paper than the original one that we were shown.
Yes. One of the things I'd like to say, we all love terpenes. Terpenes are absolutely bitchin'. They're the queens. What terpenes do is they'll take the base molecules of either THC or CBD, that's the main active molecules in the plant, and they'll help kind of direct its pathways. And some terpenes also have additional benefits in the body. So terpenes are awesome. Understand that first and foremost. Here's the only question: temperature. At what temperature do you introduce these terpenes to your body, and what pathway are you taking? So the worst way, and it's not terrible, you're not going to die tomorrow, I'm not trying to make crazy shit here, but the worst way to do it is to really torch them at super high temperatures on something like this thing here that the company made me have to test things. It's called a dab rig. At some of those temperatures, some of those terpenes actually turn into shit that's really, really bad for you. But those terpenes, through science, have said have really, really good effects on your body. So the way to get them in your body, hopefully, is in lower temperatures. And that's what we're trying to address with the powders. But yeah, you'll find a lot of stuff out there on terpenes. What I would suggest, if you're looking at some of the different articles, look for who is citing the article that you're addressing. If you find other people of high caliber who are citing an article, that's where you're going to want to afford some recognition to it. But terpenes are awesome. A lot of the research done on terpenes is true. You really do need to just be aware at what the temperatures are. And let me give a quick analogy, if I may, just to wrap this up. In the vitamin industry, I did a lot of stuff bringing nutritional products to market. So there's molecules as they appear in nature, and then there's molecules that are kind of like altered to be the drug version of a vitamin D or a vitamin C or something like that. So a lot of the terpenes and the research on them are done at the levels that you'll find in the plant. When you're seeing them extracted and stuck into your high-level burning stuff in a dab, it's not the same deal. And I'm just wanting to hopefully make that clear to everybody that terpenes are cool, burning them might not be the best. Is that enough?
I think so. Yeah, I think that was good. What temperature would you say? Like, do you think that it requires like combustion level temperatures, or even just like vaporizing level temperatures to become?
You really, like myrcene is like the worst. You really don't want to get a lot of these things over 500 degrees. And when I'm saying that, please understand the caveat that the amount of molecules that would have to be going on would be a lot. So like if somebody's a recreational dabber, okay, they're doing, like little bits, it's really not a big thing. If you're getting serious with it, or if you're finding that certain terpene groups are helping you medically, and you're chasing the terpenes medically, you are so much better served going to a medical model because you never change those terpenes from what they really are. When you're capturing them with your lungs, it is an unbelievably inefficient system to capture the wonderful molecules that you're growing with such attention. You guys grow some badass shit. Smoking it is sacrilege to all the love and attention that you guys put into what you do. That's what I'm trying to say. But those molecules really, really are good, but taking them into your body through your mouth or through your ass or through your skin, okay, whatever, gives your heart on is fine. But there's different reasons to take the molecules in different areas. Those particular terpenes, if you're in love with them, burning them is not the truth. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I really pretty much avoid burning it for the most part anymore. Like sometimes I think every once in a while, just out of nostalgia's sake, but for the most part, I use the vaporizer for pretty much anything. Yeah, and it really tastes better. And I don't have to clean the bong nearly as often. I got an adapter to hook up my vaporizer to my old bong here just through the glass on glass, and my vaporizer is just it's a Buddha vape. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these before, but it's just a little ceramic vaporizer, and it has a tube. So I hook the tube up to the bong and hit it like that, and you can get really low temp. It's adjustable, so you can turn it up high if you want to. But I like to keep it, at really low temp, and you get a lot more out of your product, and it tastes better. Like there's so much more about it. And then, like I was saying, like you can see, like here in the bottom, it's a lot clearer and cleaner than you would have. Like there's just no debris in there at all.
Chemistry.
It's way healthier. I have allergies to mold.
Prove what you're saying is true.
Yeah, so I have a lot of allergies to mold, and if you're have combustion and you get any kind of plant material down in there in the water, and gets to room temperature, it really doesn't take long for mold to start to develop. And if you're not religious about cleaning it and you start breathing through it, for me it was causing major health issues. So that's kind of what led me to sort of doing something different. So I do have a little bubbler still that I hit every once in a while, but I thoroughly clean it with rubbing alcohol and coarse salt pretty regularly, so I don't have that issue anymore. But definitely I recommend vaporizing. Vaporizing flour or concentrates is really the way to go. So my vaporizer here, I have the dab rig set up for it too, so that you can lift off the top and drop right down on top of the ceramic heater where there's a little like e-nail dab rig, and then it pulls through the same chamber. So I can do flour or concentrates or both at the same time. So I can put flour in the wand part, so flour loads into here. And then when you pull it through, you can drop your dab on top of the heater through the top. See that?
That's crazy.
So then you can mix it up too. You can put different kinds of flour in and then different kinds of concentrate. And then it just pulls all through here. So here's my glass on glass. It hooks up like that. So rather than, you can just hit it like this. But if you put it through here, then you can pull it through into a larger hit before you take it up, the same way, same reason you use bongs, even when you're just combusting.
Marty, I'd like to go to war with you.
On?
Okay, here's what I'm going to war with you on. If you're a serious medical user like that, I'm going to challenge you for like pick some period of time that's easy, but go to medibles that have been made bioavailable. I'll get you a whole bunch of powder up to you.
We'll drop some off on the way because we're gonna drive right past Marty. We'll do a quick thing.
And we missed you the last time you were doing clips. I'm so sorry we missed you.
Yes. We'll actually have a few minutes to go visit him this time.
You know, I'm not psychic, but I'm pretty sure you guys will see less traffic on the way up this time.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm pretty sure.
We'll bring some powder up to you and put it in your body. If you're a full-time user,
I like medibles. I've done tinctures.
I'm eating it. I'm the bubble man.
I've done cookies, candies, you know, the lollipops, the sugar crystals, which is not really the same thing that you guys are doing, but they have done, which is basically just crystallized, you know, sugar, and you know, not really what you guys are doing. But I've done a variety of different medibles.
Doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Doesn't work out.
Right. There was a couple of people in chat that were sort of talking about that stuff too. That would sort of sound like pixie sticks and stuff like that. And there are some medibles that I've seen marketed that way, but not the same product that you guys are talking about. So it'll be really cool to try that out. And I think also it's another solution for medical patients because it's something we talk about all the time and we touched on earlier, which is that with the packaging rules in effect, and you can only have a certain amount per product, yours is a, you know, I would imagine 0-calorie consumption, right? It's not like I got to eat 10 brownies to get the medical effect that I want to have and then consume those calories. You can definitely adjust it and then eat a brownie or two if you want to, but it's optional. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to adjust it like you guys were talking about.
Get your
and
medicine
I think for
over here, get your food over there. Yeah.
Right. You know, it's a buffet, you know, just take what you want. But I think it's a great solution to that problem as well because your packaging is small, right? It's not like it's, you know, complicated to package or it has to stay cold or, you know, anything weird like that. You know, it's definitely easy to package, so it, you know, it won't drive up the cost like some other things will. So I think, especially for patients in markets where recreational has taken over and over-regulated to the point where you can't buy the dosage you need in a single package, it's a great solution for that because you 10 times the packaging price just isn't that much. It's still like, what, less than a penny, right?
Yeah, well,
for a little bag.
We're looking at a machine that allows us to get those in a little thing. I think it's like 2 cents, which is really, really nice, you know, because like if I do it by hand, it literally costs 25 cents. I'm not kidding.
Right.
From doing these things, I've done this for a couple little deals. By hand, it costs 20 to 25 cents to do it by hand. And one of the nice things about this company looking at sustainability and everything, you're like, okay, what does it for real? 2 cents. Oh, nice. And so, yeah, really, it helps them, the patient, know that every time they get a little thing that's on a little stupid thing like I handed, they're going to get it in a little perfectly sealed stuff with nitrogen. With nitrogen, that's right. And yeah, it's going to be like perfect for like a shelf life of 2 years. Yeah, it's like 8, but it's 2 years. Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
I'm really excited to try it. Like I said, I've tried lots of stuff. I use lotions as well. So like an activated coconut oil lotion I use for my lower back pain a lot. And it's very similar in the way that you described the effect. Like there's not really anything else. Like even ibuprofen takes longer to work than the effect of putting on an activated THC lotion. Like even through the skin, I feel like it is the most effective relief for both my back pain and carpal tunnel that I have already because I'm a network engineer. So I spend all my time either fixing computers on a computer or talking to people about fixing computers on a computer. So, you know, like it's just been typing nonstop for years. So I have carpal tunnel in both hands.
Coconut's a great transfer.
And it's been like literally life-changing, like be able to continue my career kind of life-changing. That in an ergonomic keyboard, which I should have started using a long time ago, and I'm a big proponent of. So if you're using a regular keyboard or a laptop, they make cordless ones. They're really easy to use. That's my pitch. If you use it very much, I would say like more than 3 hours at a time, I would say get an ergonomic keyboard. But it's that kind of relief, I think, is definitely what I'm talking about. The activated oils being absorbed to your skin through the coconut oil is definitely that kind of relief that I don't really find anywhere else.
Tommy, we actually had a question from chat. He says, I'm making salve for my lower back tonight. Any tips?
Okay, I'll just start real fast, kind of go through it. You want to take your source material, mostly for your lower back, you're going to be looking for your CBD, which is going to be a cold process, so you don't have to go through the decarboxylation if you don't want to. Hopefully you can get a hemp kind of plant or a good cannabis plant is the best, like an ACDC or a different Harlequin or something like that. You want to put it in your oil, hopefully like in a sealed bag. You can use a Ziploc double dip kind of bag kind of thing, and keep it in a temperature of about 118 degrees for a couple days. And that's going to gently let the molecules just very comfortably ease into that coconut oil. Your body loves coconut oil. So if you can take CBD or THC and put it in coconut oil, you are so far ahead of the game chemistry-wise, I can't even tell you. And it's third grade coloring book simple to do it. So take your buds, soak them in your coconut oil, let them sit maybe like in something called a sous vide, which is where you just have a certain temperature maintaining in the bath. I suggest 118 degrees for about 5 days, and that will take all of your terpenes, all of your gentle different groups of CBDs and THC molecules, and they will very comfortably ease into the coconut oil. All you need to do is filter that through like a coffee filter, and you can get the most possible use of all your molecules that you go down to the head shop and buy, or the dispensary and buy. That is the most bioavailable way you have of those molecules. And then you can rub it on your skin. You can eat it. It can be in capsules for people that have trouble with the taste. They can just swallow it. You can cook with it. You can put it in suppositories and put it up your whistle. There's good reasons for that too. It doesn't just sound exciting. There's actually medical reasons for it. But
it's not just a good lubricant.
That coconut oil extraction of the cannabis molecules, you can never go wrong with it. And if you want to get really, really high on it, it'll get you high longer than smoking. You got no idea.
I have a pretty good idea, actually. I made the first batch I made of coconut oil infused cookies. So I baked with them after I had coconut oil. And so, you know, obviously you don't have to worry about baking the cookies as long or for as hot or any of that other stuff. I used probably a lot more than I should have, and I did the classic edible thing, right? I ate the first one. I'm like, oh, fuck, this is nothing, right? You know, so I eat 2 more, right? So I'm 3 deep, you know.
Idiot.
And then it's like an hour in, right? So like an hour later, and I fully realized that I'm like in it to win it. You know what I mean? Like there's no turning back now. And unfortunately, my wife also did the classic edible thing with me, and And to this day, she's like terrified because she's such a lightweight. Like I have a high tolerance, so it wasn't nearly as bad for me. But I mean, she had to pull like if you ever heard there's a 911 call that a cop made after him and his wife ate too much, and the cop had to call 911 on himself because he was so paranoid and thought he was gonna die. She wanted to call 911. I had to talk her out. I was like, "You are not calling 911." I mean, this was like pre any legalization. Like, there's no cards, there's no nothing. I'm like, "You are not calling 911." Like, I'm not kidding you. I had to call her doctor on her after hours line, and her doctor called her at like 10:30 at night to tell her, like, "You're not going to die. You just ate too much pot." Like, that's it. You need to take a shower. And she was awesome. I can't give out her name or anything like that, but she was just awesome in terms of dealing with that. But that was the only way that I got out of doing that. But it was, for me, I was high for about 14 hours. It wasn't until literally the next day that I really started like coming down and being able to do that. And I remember like standing at the top of my stairs and looking down the stairs. I just felt like they were going forever. Like I could just never get to the bottom. Like, so I just stood and stared down the stairs. I have no idea how long I stood there, but that was my big trip experience on too much edibles. But coconut oil, I feel like, is definitely different effect than like butter. I've had a lot of brownies and different stuff that were made with butter and didn't have quite the same effect, in my opinion. But it could have been, how much I put in as well. I'm not great at measuring some of those things sometimes. That looks about right to me. So that could have also backfired. But I do feel like coconut oil adds another layer to it, and especially in lotions. Like I said before, like anything topical, it's just, it's been great for me.
This is my woman here, and she has serious back stuff like I do. She's also had some of the surgery things, and we can, like, we're the age group where if you put your toe in the bed in the wrong way, you get that Charlie horse thing,
Mm-hmm.
Like that, the CBD version of the coconut oil that Marty's talking about.
Yeah, leg cramps, foot cramps.
Cold.
It's amazing.
Stops it fucking cold.
It's amazing stuff. I call it magic oil. It's magic oil.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, my Amy used a sample I got, and I had a rut. She used it topically on her foot. That's always killing her, and she actually admitted that she did get relief.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely got relief, and she was happy. So I said, "You want to try some more?" She goes, "Yeah." So I gave her half.
Great stuff.
She been rubbing it on her foot ever since.
And the bonus is I get to rub it on her.
Yeah.
Well, Amy and I are estranged. I don't get to rub Amy at all anymore. Watched out for her because she's in pain. So I figured, who better to prove this than her? She hates me, and if it really works, and she says it works, it really works.
I have a friend who has rheumatoid arthritis, and she bought oil for her dog because her dog fell and hurt his hip.
Oh, yeah.
She was rubbing it on her dog every day, and all of a sudden I looked at her hands and I said, "Look at your hands. They're not as gnarly and they're soft." And she goes, "Well, I've just been rubbing the dog with it." And I said, "It looks like it's really helping." And she now buys it for herself for her hands because she's in so much pain from the rheumatoid arthritis. Well, she's not in
arthritis.
They're all not gnarly anymore, and they're soft, and now she buys it for that and for her back.
Yeah, my dad was the same way. I kind of felt like he was rooting against it working in the same way, but he keeps coming back and asking me for more all the time. And he has he has knee problems. He blew out his knee in high school, and he had 2 pins in it, and 2 pins and a bolt in it, and he had I think the bolt taken out and the pins are still left in there, or maybe vice versa. But anyway, he has a lot of arthritis around it, and that's one of the things that really helps him still be able to move around and not have very much knee pain. So, it's been great for that. And then gout is the other thing that I've had success with it on. Is I get gout in my ankle and it'll swell up, to where I can't put my shoe on. And it's the only thing that I found that really actually relieves it. Not just that it helps with the pain, but it goes away. There's not there anymore. So that's, I'll have a little flare up, put some of that stuff on, and within an hour, it just doesn't come on like it does before. The swelling goes away immediately. So, and I have a friend up in Washington that I knew had gout also, and I had him try it out, and he says that it helped out a lot. So if you have gout, give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that on them. But it's magical. It's just amazing. I have plantar fasciitis, and my feet always hurt at the end of the day. And I rub some of that out, and I can walk in the morning. Just where before, when I got up in the morning, I was hobbling, and at night, I could take a bath in it. I love it so much.
It's great stuff.
Hurt in the morning. It's just wonderful.
You really could take a bath in it. That sounds kind of good, actually. Nice to think about that.
We gotta make a spa where you can take a dip in a CBD oil tub.
You need to pitch that to Scotty. You guys can have a CBD hot tub.
Actually, let's why don't you? That's a good segue on that. Why don't you plug both of us? We're talking to Scotty today. Why don't you go first?
Oh yeah, he was on with you, and was talking to you, and then you gave him my number. So we're gonna try and hook up on Sunday if he ends up coming down and talking to Brown Guy. 420, I guess, lives around here somewhere. Also, and so he might swing by on Sunday, and be able to hang out for a little bit and maybe shoot some of the food systems and stuff here. So that might be kind of cool. But anyway, so we were talking about Oregon and stuff, and I was, doing my normal rant about legislation that I do every week, and I did earlier tonight and all of that. And he goes, "Hey man, I want to get that on the show." He's like, "Hang on." And so he called me back, and so he's going to edit me into your guys' podcast earlier, so that so check that out. That'll be coming up on the Dude Grows podcast, which I think he puts out within a couple of days, usually after he records them, right, Steve?
Yeah, our episode is going to be on Monday.
Monday, there you go. And so you can check that out, and that's on the Dude Grows show. And all of our podcasts get uploaded on their website, right? Are we still doing that, Steve?
Yeah, mostly. Once in a while, I get a week or two behind, but yeah.
Yeah, I get a week or two. I'm behind right now. I think probably 2 episodes on my own channel. So, although I've been in YouTube jail, just so you know, YouTube continues to be a pain in the butt about putting up anything that's not or has anything related to cannabis, I guess, is basically what it comes down to. And so I've recently been released from YouTube jail, so I'll start uploading stuff again as soon as I.
How does that work? Because they still got me under full lockdown. For those of you guys that don't know, Marty and I and a lot of other cannabis podcasters, despite the fact that we don't really have a ton of, it's first part, nothing we do is illegal, period. Right. And then this is an educational show, and they basically completely demonetized our channels. I went from getting between $100 and $130 a year to zero, basically.
Well, mine's never gone over. I don't know if you guys know about YouTube, but unless you get 100, you can't pull out anything anyway. Mine's never. Yeah. I think my total I've ever gotten is 0. So for me, it's not that big a deal. Other than for me, I feel like it should at least be up there. From what I gathered from talking to them about it, is essentially that there are different times in which we're consuming cannabis on the show, myself included, and various guests and whoever else, Steve. And so that's probably the main issue with it. And so there was back and forth debate about that, because obviously, people drink beer on the show. People could take their prescription medicine on the show, and again, it's not illegal. It's not. Everybody who's consuming is doing so legally, so there's really no reason to do it. So there's you have to have the age restriction on, and that is basically what the compromise is at this point. So my age restriction is going up on my channel. So if you're under 18, I apologize, but you'll probably have to lie, which will mean clicking a couple of extra boxes, and it's totally stupid. But gotta do that. So,
dude, I just ate some powder. I showed a little while ago. I ate this little thing right here. I just fell down.
Are you okay?
In a big way.
Yeah, I was walking in from the back porch and I fell on my ass.
Well, you seem relatively happy about it, so it couldn't have been all bad.
It's kind of funny, like it's 20
But you
milligrams.
can't feel it now. You'll feel it tomorrow.
Yeah, it literally made me fall to my ass.
Well, you got one of those suppositories. You can just.
We can stick it in that end too. Wherever, just we'll stick it wherever.
My ass. I dare not.
Hey, we haven't tried the powder as a suppository yet. You know, we're gonna
like
try that one.
You where it hurts.
I haven't done it yet.
We gotta get an air compressor, right? No.
Oh, it's silly, man. I fell on my ass.
Oh my God.
I'll volunteer my
We
services.
need a Venturi and a speed loader and an air compressor. We'll fix your ass real quick.
I feel like Ken is over there reconsidering his life decisions.
Poor Bernadette's like, why the hell did I get involved with this guy?
I think she knows at this point.
By this time, yeah.
No, she's super cool. The first thing, I think one of the first things she told me is, have you seen the picture of me with Lord Shatner?
Nice.
So that was, immediately knew she was cool. She was kind enough to let me stay at her place the other day when I was in town, so I'm very appreciative for her.
Of course, we took the key with him.
You still got the keys, yeah. You got my dad.
Oh shit!
Keys.
I do still have the key. Fuck! I'll have to give that to you next week when I see you.
Welcome to.
I didn't even realize that. Oh man, we screwed up big time. Anyways, let's do a quick wrap up. What everyone's been up to, kind of on a short version, since we were gonna over time, but the guest was more than worth it since we had more than one. Hogmaster, what have you been up to? In short, I was talking to you earlier today.
Just working on the forum at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com, moderator. Got me a couple plants going. Everything's going great on my end, brother.
So you're doing some dabs, or you not want to talk about that?
No, actually, I bought a rosinaire, and I'm loving it. For my first day of pressing, I'm starting to figure it out. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, biggest piece of advice called again? Just so people know, you said it was a rosinator?
It's a rosinaire.
A rosinaire?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
ROSINEER.
And one thing we talked a little bit before the show. One thing I would highly suggest for people that get a new rosin press is set up an Excel sheet and keep careful data on what it is you put in the material, what the material weighed before it went into the press, and what temperature you pressed it at, because the different temperatures will make a big difference, as well as the press time and the other variables that you're going to have to deal with. Making sure you're tracking that in an Excel sheet will help you dial in your particular type of press to make sure you're, and even the strain. Certain strains will have different temperatures and pressures and times that you press them at, versus other strains that'll have different times and pressures and temperatures as well.
And if you're using openoffice.org, it's a calc sheet. You click on calc.
Yep, if you're using Google Sheets, just use Google Sheets. But that'll really help you dial in your exact temperature and get maximum yield.
Yeah, and I was really lucky. I got it at a great price, and it works. I mean, right out of the box, it was dead on.
What does that machine run?
Awesome.
I paid $250 for it, but now I haven't seen one for under $360.
Still though, that's
Awesome.
pretty inexpensive for somebody that wants to just, you know, press around at home. It's definitely not, you know, the $3,000 that they were even just 6 months ago, you know.
Yeah, this one was normally $500, but it was refurbished by the manufacturer and sent from the manufacturer, so it still has a warranty on it and everything.
There you go. It's a great cheap way for someone to get an entry level machine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because instead of buying the entry level, you get a couple of levels up.
Yep.
Price. Yeah.
That's one of the more affordable machines out there.
Absolutely.
What about you, Ken? What have you been up to?
Well, it's just been working obviously with Purity Medicinals, and we've been working crazy the last, especially the last few weeks and the last couple of months, getting all that together. So that's been super exciting. And Steve and I went to an investor conference last night and sort of pressed the flesh and kicked ass at you know, some big wigs with a lot of people that are looking to get in this industry. The farm is doing fantastic. You know, things are growing well. We had a little bit of an issue. It happens with farming. You know, sodium levels got a little bit out of whack, but sort of gotten over that and got things back and running and getting good produce out to our customers. And looking to expand. You know, my largest customer actually recently came up to me and said, "Hey, we're planning on growing, and if you could produce 4 times as much food, you have a buyer for it." So that was super exciting for us. So really exciting growth opportunities for our business. We have sort of stuff pre-sold already. So we're exciting with working with Purity Medicinals and getting in that space, and also expanding our own operations. You know, things are going really well for us. We're going to be at the Aquaponics Association conference in November as well, up in Portland. So I hope to meet some of you all up there, and sort of we can chat about all the different types of projects we going on. So thanks so much for having me on. Certainly appreciate it, and the opportunity to be here and to share some of the great news that you've been teasing for a long time.
Do you want to talk about any other upcoming classes you have at the
farm?
Oh
yeah, definitely. So we do have some upcoming classes in October. So October 7th and 8th. I know there's the Dude Grows Cup is going up on Portland. I was planning on going, but I just happen to be teaching that weekend a beginner and intermediate level class as well. So if anybody find yourself in the Bay Area, certainly come to that. And then Steve will be doing another aquaponic class at our farm the 21st and 22nd of October, and then we'll be doing another 3-day commercial class in November, the 10th, 11th, and 12th, I believe. 9th, 10th, and 11th, somewhere in there. The second weekend in November, we're doing our 3-day commercial class where you'll be able to learn the aquaponic farming experience, learn all you need to know about aquaponics and the variety of different ways, from anywhere from the basics up to cultivation and seeding, planting, harvesting. Part of that experience as well includes a farm-to-table dinner. So we'll actually harvest some catfish. We're actually probably getting some trout, I think, next week. So that might be a little bit interesting, different fish to have. So we'll be able to harvest some fish right out of our system. Then we'll have those for dinner the following night. So lots of ways to get involved. I know we'll probably have opportunities with Steve and hopefully Charlie, if we can manage it as well, to have some other types of classes going forward. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. Again, super excited to be part of this industry, and things are just getting better every day. So awesome opportunity. Thanks so much for having me on.
And for those of you guys that can't make it at home, Marty and I actually teach. Marty is part of that class as well. And we actually have an online version of the class, which we'll take live. The class is taught live the same time it's taught in person at Ouroboros. And Marty handles some of the cannabis stuff because we're not physically allowed to have cannabis plants at Ken's farm because of legal issues that'll solve themselves here before too long. But for the next few months, through at least the rest of this year, we're not allowed to bring any cannabis plants there. And yeah, so if you're interested and you want to take an online course, definitely check it out. You'll have me and Marty there if you take the online version. And yeah, you'll very much can take it regardless of where you're at. If you can come in person, you learn a few extra things in person. We also have an app for those of you who are able to attend. We have a little bit of an after hours a meetup on Saturday, without getting into detail, where we take people off and we have kind of a little powwow. You can probably imagine what we do in between classes during a cannabis class. And yeah. Yep. Tommy's been through it.
Safety meeting.
Yeah, we have a safety break in between the 2 days to make sure that all of our products are tested and have good feedback. At an off-site location that we have. Anyways, so if you're interested in coming out, you want to try some of the best products there are on the planet, and you want to get a real good education about it, it's definitely a once in a lifetime kind of experience. What have you been up to, Marty?
So we're basically, like I've talked about, getting ready to sell the house, hopefully, and we did get an offer on it. We did, so it's not all said and done yet. Obviously, a lot of steps to go, and but pretty excited about that. But as far as growing wise, that sort of limits my options. I have those couple of plants you guys saw last week. I was going to go down to the garage, but I've been too lazy to show you guys this time. But we'll check in next week. So I think what am I, about 3 weeks or so into flower right now? I think in the garage with just those 2 plants, and trying to keep up with that, and doing the IT job and the cloud business and moving and looking for a house and all that stuff. Not a lot of time for gardening at the moment, so not too much in terms of that, but a lot of other stuff that we'll hopefully get to a lot more gardening very soon.
Well, you got till Sunday till the film crew shows up, so.
Oh, well, as far as, obviously I'm not going to grow, what I mean by a lot more gardening is that I'll be able to have a lot more plants at wherever I move to or whatever ends up happening. Just, it's not really conducive. Like right now, if I set up a bunch of stuff, then I'll have to move before any of it's done. And so it's all just waiting to set up at wherever I land. So we'll see where that goes.
All right. What about you, Tommy? What have you been up to?
Oh golly, I've just I've been out of my comfort zone in a very exciting way. Been traveling up and down the left coast, attending seminars, going to different teaching seminars. Went up to another one of Steve's classes. The only thing better than doing Steve's class one time is doing it twice. The first time will overwhelm you. The second time will definitely help you at least acknowledge, holy shit, I missed all this the first time. Are you kidding me? So that was really pretty groovy. Been working on getting some lab level tech methodologies proved here in Del Mar, so we're ready for setting up for manufacturing. So that's pretty exciting. Getting all sorts of gadgets and special solvents and everything to do some testing. And I'm about to start this next week, actually making some runs on the new proprietary equipment. That's pretty wild. Yeah. My girlfriend's back, and I have a whole bunch of glass and stainless steel. So it's a toss-up between which one gets my attention. I think the glassware has a pretty good chance, just because it's so exciting.
I don't think.
Well, we'll see. So yeah, that's kind of what's been up. And working on some lab stuff. Working on sharing the powder with people and getting a lot of feedback on it. And looking forward to making that a very marketable product. And just filling in the crossing the T's and dotting the I's over this week.
All right. Awesome. What about you, Roger?
Well, I actually cloned one of Marty's favorite plant strains today. I took a couple of Blue Dreams because they were growing up into my T5s. So I decided I'd take some cuttings. And so I took 3 cuttings off of that and put, a little rooting powder, stuck them in Rockwell. My Fruity Pack grow is, finished getting into that ripening, bulking up, finishing stage. I'm really excited about that. I went in and saw my pineapple haze is like freaking out. You got all of a sudden just went a whole shitload of leaves just went yellow on one side. I think I left it from not turn. I think it's because I got lazy and didn't turn it around. I think I just bleached them out. So I've kind of pruned them off today and got my hand all sticky. And then of course I was itching all evening because, you know, when you get that on your hands and you touch yourself, you start itching all over the place. So I got the itchy arms from touching my sativa tonight. And but yeah, it's been another nice grow, growing it with Flower Power. Hey, here's a cool thing, that Flower Power nutrients that we've been pushing, that we, well, not just no so much push, but I tried it and I love it compared to all the other stuff I've used as far as anything synthetic or whatever. And we've sold out. We've been sold out for 2 weeks and we don't have any more. I was told the other day we don't have any for another 2 weeks. So, you know, that's kind of cool. The company's happy, you know. So I guess that's about it. I'm waiting for it to cool down so I can get some people to actually come and do some work around here and try to get some hoop houses built, some cold frames and stuff, and start some winter projects and get some aquaponics going, because I got to get off my butt. But I'm waiting for it to cool down so it's nice and enjoyable to go out in the day. And you know, the humidity's been extremely high since the hurricane, and it's just been and the bugs are like insane. You know, it was really cooling down and being really nice and easing into fall. And then bam, we had that hurricane, and right after hurricane, it's like we're back in August, you know, hot as hell, and, you know, 60%, 70, 80% humidity some days, and the mosquitoes and gnats, you know, from that, after all the water standing, you know, around here, it's been driving us crazy. So I'm looking for that little cold snap that knock them bugs back so we can get out there. And I'm ready to take my farm back this year and get my greenhouse opening again. And since I got 2 or 3 extra reservoirs and plenty of access to 55-gallon soap drums, I'm going to start that aquaponics deal, man. We're going to start some stuff up and see how it goes.
Be sure to bring up which pests, or let me ask you real quick. I was trying to wrap the show up, but what insects are you running into?
Well, I'm going to be looking, and I haven't really got that far yet. I just know that I met your friend from North Carolina. And then we discussed it because I thought I could harvest bugs locally and build that on my own, you know, from here in the swamp. But you said you don't think that's a good idea. I mean, I guess I could have them tested and find out if they're bad, right? I mean, but you also said you got a strain.
So that's something actually. While we're on the note, that's one of the things I really emphasize. And actually, Ken knows this too. I really heavily emphasize identifying and properly identifying insects you find on your plants. Tommy can speak on this as well because he's seen my slide deck. Properly identifying it, and the reason why I talk about this is we'll use thrips as an example. Thrips are normally considered to be one of the heavy pests in the cannabis industry. That they'll screw up your plants and screw up your leaves. But what people don't know is about 35% of thrips are predatory. There's a whole section of thrips that are some of the most voracious mite predators that you can find. They're the same size as mites, just slightly larger, and they'll eat, you know, 35 to 40 mites per day, or at least murder 35 to 40 mites per day. And if you have a population of them, they'll protect your plants. So properly identifying, and same thing with horn beetles and stink bugs. Horn beetles will murder anything that touches your plants. Stink bugs look almost identical and will suck the juice out of your plants. So making sure you know what's properly on your plant, even if they look almost identical, is very important. And understanding what it is. That's the reason why it's very important that people reach out to the local agricultural department at their local universities and, local state colleges in order to properly identify the insects. There's 1,001 $20 to $40 lenses you can get for your cell phone. Okay, go get those cell phone lenses, stick them on your phone, take a really good cell phone picture. You know, everyone has a cell phone with a camera on it. Take a $20 to $40, instead of spending it on some stupid nutrient you don't know what's going to do, and being upsold by your local hydro guy, spend it on a camera that you can actually use to identify what's going on with your plants, when be it fungi or be it insect, and then actually take a good picture with your phone, give it to the guy that actually knows what he's talking about, and get a proper answer and be properly educated on what's going on with your garden. It's a way better investment. Way better investment.
And this, they can identify it. Even you can email the pictures to them. You can
exactly.
All your
and
local.
They'll do it for free. They'll do it for free every day of the week.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just call all you. In fact, it's a good idea if you grow, especially outdoors, that you identify yourself with your local agent, because they're not, you know, and so that they know who you are. And
they will not care. They will not care if it's cannabis or not. They will not report you to the police. They don't give a shit. They need to know the local insect populations for insect control for local crops. That's all they care about. They will not report you to the cops if you're in a less than legal area. They're your friend. They're one of the handful of people that will not turn you in, and they don't care. Their main concern is monitoring pest populations. That's it.
It doesn't hurt to be
100% they won't turn you in, but the likelihood is extremely low. We'll leave it at that. Because half of them are, most of them are growing. Yeah, most of them are growing anyway, just so you're aware. You know, why is it you think that they're so good at, you know, pest control on plants to begin with? So, but yeah. Anyways, I wanted to wrap up the show. I wanted a quick plug everybody that was on the show. Charlie Schultz, if you're interested in him, check out UVI Facebook group. You can also reach him at Aquaponics. What was it? Aquaponics at hotmail.com, I think is his email. If you're interested in emailing him specifically. Jeff Lowenfels, he was kind enough to join us. Check him out. His website is jefflowenfels.com. He's also the author of Teaming with Microbes, Teaming with Nutrients, and Teaming with Fungi. And huge shout out to him. Thank you so much again for joining the show. He had to split earlier. I apologize for him without plugging him at the end.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that. Big shout out to Hogmaster over at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. And big shout out to BrayneGro. BrayneGro is Coyote Grows on YouTube. So be sure to check him out. He's one of our biggest supporters. He hasn't been able to join the show in many weeks. He was finally able to get a break. He actually has to be back at work at midnight, whatever his local time was. So he basically gave up half the time he was going to sleep tonight in order to join the show. So super big thank you to him. And I'm sure he'll be listening to this later in the night tonight. So big thank you to you. And, we love you, brother. And we look forward to having you back on a normal schedule when you're able to.
It was great to see you tonight. Yeah.
Yep. And then Marty, big shout out to Marty. His YouTube channel is AP Meds, youtube.com, and his Patreon, which if you're looking to further support him, I think the highest tier is $3 or $5 a month. It's pretty low on his Patreon. Is AP Meds as well, which is AP Meds, MEDS. So thanks for him for joining. Hogmaster, you want to tell people how to find you?
He's at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com.
All right.
Moderator on there. You can find me just about any day. I'm on there all the time.
Awesome. What about you, Roger?
Well, you can find me there, although I'm not there as much as some of these guys like Hogmaster, where they, I am working on a new website, and I'm going to get it done here in the next few weeks. I've had some problems with my technical people after the website crash. So, you can understand how that goes. So we're trying to get that back on track. So I'm kind of getting back into doing some stuff. Been waiting to see what you guys were up to. Basically, yeah, I'm just doing the same day-to-day thing, running the forum, growing plants, trying to enjoy life the best I can. And yeah, that was a great show tonight, Jeff Lowenfels. Oh man, that was so cool. What a down-to-earth guy, That was fantastic.
Awesome. What about you, Ken? How do people find you, Ken?
Yeah, you can find us at ouroborsfarms.com. You can find us also on Facebook as Ouroboros Farms as well. Yeah, just check out our website. We have all sorts of information about what we do and our team of growers that we have there, and upcoming classes as well. Also have a list of all the restaurants. If you find yourself in the Bay Area, we sell to a whole bunch of restaurants. So not only can you come to our farm and pick your own produce, but you can also enjoy our produce in the hands of executive chefs throughout the Bay Area. So great opportunity. Again, ouroborsfarms.com. Hope to see you guys at the farm one day. We love sharing what we're doing with anybody that comes on by.
Can't wait to come visit.
Hey, you're welcome anytime.
One of these days. I'm working on a West Coast trip. It's just hard, you know. You don't get days off. You don't get any days off.
You are going to crash at my place if you need to, Roger.
All right, that'll be cool. I'm sure we'll have fun then.
Yeah, I can come pick you up from San Francisco.
Cool. Yeah, I bet you get a straight through flight to San Francisco from down here. Yeah.
San Francisco's pretty cheap. Anyways, what about you, Tommy? How do people find you?
Well, I've got Old Fart Grows on YouTube. Haven't been putting a lot of content up there. Been a little bit busy figuring some stuff out, but hope to have some stuff there in the future. And otherwise, there's not a whole lot of reason to get a hold of me. I'm kind of boring, but I'm definitely glad to hang around here and see the fun stuff that's going on the fish pond stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everyone that joined us tonight. I think this is definitely the longest episode that we've done so far. I think I can confidently say that. Thanks to Jeff Lowenfels again for joining us. He's someone that we all look up to. Again, Charlie's literally written a curriculum around his books. And Charlie is someone we all highly respect on the show, and for him to use him as a textbook is pretty amazing. So it was super, super amazing to have him on the show. I also, again, to bring this up one last time, I highly respect Jeff Lowenfels because he doesn't have a degree in botany. He doesn't have a degree in biology. You know, he's self-taught the same way that I am, where we both started off in a different direction and then went, okay, this isn't for me. This is, botany and agriculture is for me. So we self-taught ourselves. We sat and spent time taking online courses, sitting through seminars, doing our own research, doing our reading and learning from people that actually do know and do have a degree in it, and still ending up in the same scenario where we're equally as knowledgeable. Not to say that I'm on his level, because I'm not, but to hear other people that have taken a different path, where they didn't take their, they ended up aspiring in a way that wasn't their original, college degree is amazing, and something that it's just inspiring as someone that, totally got off in a different direction in me and my personal life. And not to speak too much about myself, but my original degree is in IT. So to hear someone else that has, kind of taken it upon themselves and done a ton of research and taken online courses and done a ton of research to pursue something like that was really inspiring. So, and someone, not only that, but someone I look up to on a regular basis. So, and I've read a lot about. So that was really awesome to have him on the show tonight. So thanks again for him coming on the show tonight.
And continuing to experiment, and continuing to experiment and even accepting ideas from this panel tonight.
Yep, that was super awesome. Again, it always amazes me to see people that I look up to on a regular basis on this show very regularly taking notes while on our show, which is something that just always put a smile on my face. So if you guys are interested in more, definitely check out Potent Ponics on YouTube. If you're listening to this on SoundCloud, and then be sure to check us out, in the future every Thursday. We normally on Thursdays. Once in a while we move to Fridays for certain guests. If we have a really cool guest that can't only make it on a Friday, be it the Australians, or in Jeff's case, someone in Alaska with a different time zone. Certain time zones, it's easier if we do it on Fridays, and because it's on Saturday, or matters less to them or whatever. So thanks for everyone for joining the show. Be sure to check us out, and then hope to have you again on the show. Thanks a lot, everybody. Be sure to check us out again in the future, and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell next to the subscribe button so you know when to get the alert. And thanks a lot. Have a good evening. Thanks a lot.